Today, I got some much needed revenge and some fantastic justice against a thief after they came into my store and stole over $200 worth of items. Because right when I was about to make a police report, this idiot comes back to try and steal more, giving me the perfect chance to report this guy and watch him get busted, which truly was one of the most satisfying experiences of my entire career in customer service. Here's how it went down. Subscribe to Am I the Jerk and hit the bell to turn on notifications. Alright, so I work in retail, and for those of you like me, there is nothing more annoying than a thief coming into your store and stealing a lot of items without being noticed before it's too late. And that is except for like maybe annoying customers, but to each their own, I mean whatever. But last night, oh my god, it was a once in a lifetime experience for me in like the past 3 years that I've been working retail. It all began when a shoplifter came into my store and began to steal a bunch of items. And this all started with some fragrances. And I know this by the way because he literally ripped the tamper tag on it near me, but I wasn't able to see it in time. But I did, however, keep him in mind after seeing him walk around without any items and just continuously grabbing more. When he eventually left the store when I wasn't looking, I asked my colleague in the front who said that he didn't see the guy pay for anything. And after reviewing the cameras, I saw him crystal clear as day stealing by like shoving items into his bags and taking clothing. But unfortunately, when I did see it on the camera, several minutes had already passed. So there was no doubt in my mind that he should have been like long gone by this point. Which really sucks because from what I saw, he grabbed a lot of stuff. And having a blatant thief on your shift when you're like the manager on duty is never fun, because then you've got to explain to your boss why neither you nor your coworker caught or even noticed the guy. But regardless, I still called a non-emergency police line because I needed a police report for the report that I still had to make for loss prevention. It's a process. I had to do it. There was no choice. But guess what? At that moment, by the grace of God, while I was in the middle of finding out what this guy had stole, this guy got just a little bit too greedy. And how, you might be asking? Well, guess what? He came back to the store for more. I kid you not. He thought he could steal from us once and then come back like 40 minutes later and steal from us again. And my God, the moment I spotted him, the moment I saw him walk back into the store, my eyes lit up. I ran into our stockroom and I called 911 immediately. I explained exactly what was going on. I laid down the whole situation. And because I did it that way, they sent officers way faster. And you know what? Thankfully they did, because soon after the guy dipped again, they showed up and managed to grab the guy since he was on foot. So I got every single item he stole back, amounting to nearly $200. Plus I got him arrested as my boss wanted to press charges. What was really surprising was the fact that my store wasn't the only one he stole from, because apparently he had several items that were not in my store system, and they were literally locked up in a way that you could not get to them. But overall, I was dying laughing, and I was celebrating that the guy got greedy because it meant I got all the stuff back, and he would finally get in trouble. And thankfully, my boss was pretty happy too, which makes all of this well worth it. Oh my gosh, I love this. This is so cathartic, dude. If you've never worked in retail, you're not gonna get it, but oh my gosh. Catching a thief red-handed is like a fantasy of people who work in retail. Because seriously, I've worked in retail before, and I've literally witnessed someone stare at me from the cash register, stuff a bag of Twizzlers under their shirt, smile, and then walk out of the building. And it's like by the time I say anything, they're long gone. I've even had like a couple walk up to me and do something similar where they literally stole candy. It's always candy, by the way. And they said out loud to each other, "Did you get the candy and did you put it in your bag?" Meanwhile, I'm sitting there scanning all their items and I'm just like, are you kidding me right now? Like, what are we doing? This was like an early job for me. I was like, I don't know what to do. And by the time I reported them, they also got out of the building. And it's like, man, these slippery little jerks. I swear I hate them so much, dude. If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you know for a fact that I hate thieves. Seriously, dude, you make the lives of people who work hard every day just so much harder, because then we have to explain exactly like the original poster described why it is that I didn't notice that, yeah, you stole from us. So my God, I want to say thank you to the original poster because this is beautiful. I am so glad that you got to live my fantasy here because oh my gosh, getting to see this pay off against a scumbag stealing from your store is something that truly, as they describe, is a once in a lifetime experience, because most time it is miserable to realize that they get away with it. But this time you got them, and honestly, I think that is so fantastic. But what about you? Leave a comment down below. Have you ever dealt with a thief at a store? Have you ever seen something like that go down either as like a worker at a store or even as like a customer like in line checking out? Seriously, leave a comment down below. I would love to hear your experiences. Okay, one of my favorite things right now is reading the comment section and seeing exactly what you guys think. And honestly, I'm kind of blown away by this comment that I found where someone said that they're listening and watching at home in China. And I don't know, man, that's just weird. That's weird to me, and that's really cool that someone across the world from me is watching a video that I made. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's just strange. So big shout out to Eric. Thank you for watching, dude. And just like Eric did, if you're new, you should totally subscribe. Hit the bell, turn on notifications, the whole shebang. And if you want to submit your own stories, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit. It's the best place on the internet if you want to share your story and get your voice out there. And with that, let's get back to the video and on to the next story. Am I the jerk for asking our wedding photographer to remove a very specific family photo from our gallery after my mother-in-law went out of her way to organize this one photo where I wouldn't be involved, putting me in a situation where I'm very offended, I'm very hurt by this, and I'm not sure if I'm making a mistake or not, or if I'm justified with this, because right now I really just don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, so my husband and I recently got married, and there has been some tension between me and his family for years. I won't unpack all of the history, but I've often felt like I'm tolerated as his partner rather than actually viewed as a part of their family. So because of that history, my husband and I specifically discussed family formals before the wedding. We agreed we wanted both of us included in the formal family portraits. If we took photos with his family or my family, both of us would be included. We were getting married and we wanted the portraits to reflect that. Now, just to be clear, I do not expect to be in every photo my husband takes with his family, and I don't even care if he takes pictures alone with his mom or siblings. This was specifically about the formal portraits at our wedding and what they represented. Because trust me, there was one grouping we specifically did not want, namely my husband, his mom, and siblings, all without me present. And our photographer absolutely knew this. I was there for basically all of the family formals, but I did step inside briefly just to get a drink. During the few minutes I was gone, that exact photo was taken. Well, fast forward to receiving our wedding gallery, and we posted some online photos, and my mother-in-law called asking if we had gotten the gallery back, despite clearly knowing that we had. She then asked for the link and specifically said she wanted the photo of herself with all of her children, which by the way was the one formal family photo that I wasn't in. That already bothered me, but something my bridesmaid told me after the wedding made it completely worse. She said that she had been helping organize family photos and told my mother-in-law that she was needed for another picture. Well, my mother-in-law didn't want to take it without all of her children, which is completely fair, but then she pointed towards me and said, well, I already took pictures with that girl. And yeah, she's talking about me. I'm the girl that's going to be her son's wife, at our wedding. So that's why this isn't about needing to be in every picture. It's not really about the picture at all, if I'm honest. It's the principle of the matter. I wanted to feel valued enough that my husband's family would want me in their family portrait, but instead I'm being referred to as that girl, and the photo my mother-in-law specifically wanted from our wedding was the one formal family portrait where I wasn't included. In any other context, I wouldn't think twice about a mom wanting a photo of her children, but given the history, her comment, and the fact that my husband and I had specifically agreed we didn't want that grouping at our wedding, it felt entirely different. So after she asked for it, I contacted our photographer and I had the photo removed from the online gallery. I know it was petty, and yeah, the photo exists, and I'm obviously not saying my husband can never take a photo with his family without me, but I just don't want this particular photo in our wedding gallery when it clearly represents the exact dynamic that has made me feel excluded for several years. So am I the jerk here because I just don't know what to do anymore? No, you're not the jerk, but holy crap, this sounds like a husband problem. Are you kidding me right now? He's clearly not on the same page, dude. If he cared about your feelings even for a second, he would have stood up for you and told his mom to kick rocks. Dude, why did he say nothing? Why did he willingly go along with this and be like, well, I guess we'll take the photo. I know my wife's not gonna like this, but sure, we'll do it just to keep the peace. It's like, dude, no, your wife is being excluded by your mom. She's doing this. She's obviously orchestrating this in a way to exclude her from a photo at her own wedding. That is beyond toxic, and it's very manipulative too. And yeah, of course she would want that photo and only that photo, because she clearly wants to continue this dynamic of oh, you're not welcome in this family, even though you clearly married her son. What's happening right now? So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, dude. I think you're fighting fire with fire, because if this lady wants to be petty by excluding you from that photo, then you have every right to remove that photo and say, nope, you're not getting this one. Because yes, it is about the principle of the matter. And I just think giving her this one photo is just absolutely not something that I would ever ever do because it just seems incredibly inappropriate. Am I the jerk for calling out a coworker during a potluck after he literally pulled out a bunch of Tupperware containers and started taking a bunch of food away from people who made stuff, despite the fact that he didn't cook anything himself? Because after I told my coworkers about this, I don't know if maybe I crossed a line, and at this point I don't really know what to do. Here's how it all went down. Okay, so yesterday we had a company potluck for our department, which was about like 15 people in total, and we did this as a going away celebration for a coworker who I will call Tom for the sake of the story. Now, most people brought something including Tom, and some coworkers didn't, which isn't normally a big deal, but there is an exception to that rule, and it is our one coworker who I will call Bob. Bob didn't bring anything. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen Bob bring anything to a potluck, and we've had several every year. During our potlucks, we leave the food out for just a little bit, then we put it in the refrigerator for people to snack on or to eat when they get a chance during their shift. Well, while we're all putting away food, Bob pulled out a couple of like Tupperware containers and started filling them with food that other people had brought. Well, when I saw this, I confronted Bob, and he just said, "Oh, I don't want to cook later after my shift," stating he's just gonna bring some food home instead. I then told him, okay, well maybe those people who cooked that food would like to bring it home instead of him. But when I said that, Bob just shrugged his shoulders and continued packing containers. He also grabbed a couple of packs of cookies left out and threw them in his bag. Well, I brought this up to a couple of coworkers who did bring a lot of food, and they seemed reasonably upset. So am I the jerk for calling Bob out for this and telling others what he did? Because honestly, I don't know if I'm starting drama or if I'm in the right in any kind of way. What should I do? Okay, dude, I hate Bob, and I hate any coworker who acts like this, because seriously, this is a potluck, dude. At least pretend like you want to be there for the right reasons, or at least show up with something to show for yourself. Like, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but if I'm going to be going to some kind of potluck or get-together, and it's expected that I should bring something, then congratulations, I'm going to go to the grocery store, get some cookies, and throw it in the mix. And I only say that because I'm the kind of person who definitely does not know how to cook. Like, I can't cook to save my life, so that's like an easy out for me. But holy crap, Bob is doing it wrong, dude. You don't just show up and then start taking food and being like, well, I want this because I'm not going to cook later. It's like, no, Bob, that's not how it works. The people who made the food get first dibs, and then maybe you can get the scraps. Like, come on now. So no, you're not the jerk for calling him out. People like this need to be called out. And I also think it's completely fine that you told your coworkers. Like, who cares? Because at least next time they'll be able to like watch their stuff and be like, okay, Bob, you're not getting my food this time. Because holy crap, I'm not that good of a cook anyways. But if I did go out of my way to make something and I spent a lot of time trying to get it right, only to then discover that Bob had siphoned off like most of it away from me to enjoy as well, I would also be very pissed off. Like, there's no excuse for that. And in my opinion, I think Bob absolutely needed to be called out. My girlfriend is suddenly posting pictures of herself on her TikTok account, which also coincides with the fact that she met a guy on Valorant that she became friends with, who she also added on TikTok. Because I've known for a fact that my girlfriend has always wanted to keep her TikTok account anonymous until very recently after she added this guy. And now I'm kind of wondering if something's going on, and at this point I don't know how to approach the situation. Here's what's currently happening. Okay, so I've been in a relationship for more than a decade, and honestly, I know almost everything about my girlfriend, which includes even the smallest changes in her behavior. Sometimes, just by the way she acts, I can tell when something's on her mind. We both agreed a long time ago that we'd have access to each other's social media accounts, and we're both completely comfortable with that. On my side though, I rarely check her accounts, and we're talking like maybe once or twice a year if that. And even then, it's not to read her messages. Sometimes I just use her account to scroll around. The only account I don't have access to is her TikTok account. Her TikTok has always been anonymous. It doesn't use her real name, and it doesn't have her personal photos, and sometimes even our dog's photos are used instead. It has always been more of like a gamer account than a personal one. Well, one day she asked if she could borrow my Valorant account because she wanted to play again and she liked that mine actually had skins. And honestly, that's pretty normal, like she's borrowed my account before. While she was playing, she became friends with a guy. And just to be clear, I don't mind if she has friends of any gender. To me, that's just completely normal. People make friends and that's just part of life. And of course, I also believe that healthy boundaries exist to protect a relationship. I've never been controlling about who she talks to or who she's friends with, and I've always trusted her and let her do whatever she wants. Well, going back to the Valorant guy, she eventually gave him her TikTok account. She even told me about it herself, and I said I was fine because I didn't really mind, and she also told me that the guy was trying to flirt with her, but I didn't really make a big deal out of it because I trusted that she knew how to handle the situation herself. But with that in mind, however, over the last few days, I've noticed that she started posting like really nice pictures of herself on TikTok. She's changed her profile profile picture to photos of herself and has been posting stories featuring herself too. And that's really what feels strange to me, because she had always told me she wanted to stay anonymous on TikTok. Now, I don't want to accuse her or tell her that I'm suspicious, because I'm not really jealous or like a controlling person. I still trust that she knows what she's doing, because hey, you know what? Like, maybe she was just feeling confident. Maybe she felt pretty that day, or just simply wanted to post herself. And to me, that's completely okay with me. But what feels the most odd is the timing. After meeting this guy and becoming friends with him on TikTok, that's when she suddenly stopped being anonymous and started posting photos of herself. So truly, I really need to know, am I overthinking this? Or is it reasonable for me to feel that something seems just a bit off? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be having a conversation about this. But I wouldn't make it like a hostile one. I would make it kind of casual and maybe just ask her like, hey, what's going on? You're suddenly like posting on TikTok. And maybe I would even like ask her like, hey, maybe we should make one together, just to kind of like test the water a little bit if she's still being ambiguous. Because if there is nothing going on between her and this one guy, then she would have no problem posting her boyfriend online with her. But if there is some kind of sketchiness happening, she'll probably fight back against that. She'll probably not want you to be seen as her boyfriend if there is some kind of like, I don't know, nefarious intentions going on. So that's what I would do personally to try and figure out the situation. Because yeah, what you're describing does sound a little suspicious, but I think you can go about this in a diplomatic way that doesn't like burn any bridges. Because the last thing you want to do is run in there just being like, oh, you're cheating on me. Like, especially if you don't have any evidence. That would be a terrible idea, and I think you need to do this calmly and very carefully. My girlfriend is literally playing games with our finances and our living situation, as she's now refusing to pay for any of the mortgage that she agreed to pay when she first moved in. And now, honestly, I'm done with this relationship. I've checked out entirely and I want her to leave, but I also don't want her kid, who also lives with us, to be homeless. Because right now, I'm worried that if I kick her out, this really is going to be the reality of the situation. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. My girlfriend and I have been dating for a little over 4 years. And last year, we decided that she and her son could move into my home. And before that, we discussed the billing and like household responsibilities and finally came to an agreement. We agreed that she would pay $500 a month and cover groceries and most basic necessities. Meanwhile, I would cover all the utilities and stuff like that. We would each pay for our own phone bill, our car payments, and our insurance. My mortgage is about $2,200 a month, and I earn like a little more than twice what she earns. She previously paid like $950 a month for rent, not including utilities. And I figured it was fair, like we'd both benefit a little financially, and she agreed to this as well. And you know what? Even beyond that agreement, I still purchased most of our necessities and some of our groceries. Well, last fall, I purchased a newer truck. And this is nothing fancy. It's just a model from 2020 and it's got low miles. Well, she would grief me on it that I'm using her rent money to buy new things. But my trade-in plus some cash left me with a $250 monthly payment for 4 years. Plus, I was using savings from before she even moved in. Well, in February, she came home with a brand new SUV plus a monthly payment of over $925. Well, ever since then, she's been refusing to pay me the full amount, claiming, oh, I don't have enough money. She'll say to me, oh, it's not fair that I got a new car and that it's my house and that she shouldn't have to pay towards the mortgage because if we break up, it'll just be money thrown away. Now, after she said this, I honestly just don't know how to navigate this, especially when there's a kid involved. Even with her not paying, it won't crush me financially, but my God, it is incredibly obvious that she is taking advantage of me. I love her kid like my own, and his father is a deadbeat who doesn't want anything to do with him, and I know if I kick her out, she won't be able to afford rent with that car payment, and I'm really not sure where they would go. I would feel horrible letting that young child be forced to sleep in a car or like live on the streets of some kind. If I'm being completely honest, the relationship is over in my head, and at this point, I've just kind of like given up just out of civility and pretending like everything's fine. So how do you think I should go about breaking it off? Do I give an ultimatum, or do I just give her a period of time to figure things out, knowing that she will likely try to manipulate me, or possibly even become more of a hindrance to me? What should I do? Okay, someone in the comment section said exactly what I was thinking, but they literally said, hey, it sounds like it wasn't just the dad that was a deadbeat, and you're just now discovering that, and like that is exactly how I feel. Because holy crap, what a terrible person. She waited until the perfect moment to strike. She waited until you needed a car and you got something for her to be like, okay, my turn. Because she needed some kind of excuse not to pay for the mortgage. And that's obnoxious, dude, even if you can afford it. Like, man, she sucks as a partner and she's not a good girlfriend. For me, if I was in your shoes, I would not let this kid sway my decision of getting her out of there, because at the end of the day, it is her decision to step up and be the mom. So if I was in your shoes, and I can only speak for myself, and I'm not saying you should do this because this is just what I would do in my own opinion, but I would look at her and say, I'm breaking up with you and I'm giving you 90 days to move out and find somewhere else to live. If she doesn't like it, then guess what? She can sell the car and find a place that she can actually afford. Like, I think that would be a reasonable amount of time to figure your life out, because my man, I totally understand you don't want the kid to be homeless. But if you think about it, she's almost using that as like a human shield to prevent you from kicking her out. And the second you sidestep that and get the angle and look at her and say, you've got to go, I really think the happier and the better off you're going to be, dude. Don't even think about the kid. Think about how crappy this woman's acting. Like, I really believe in my heart of hearts that that kid is going to be fine, because they had to live somewhere previously. They weren't just living on the streets and then you brought them in. The girlfriend obviously knows how to find a place on her own, so like, I would bank on that. I would give her like a grace period, at least for like the kid's sake, maybe even like a 60-day grace period to be like, okay, figure your stuff out and get out. Because you should not be forced to pay for all that. Like, honestly, you've already checked out of the relationship. You've already said like, okay, I'm done with this. I really don't want to be in this relationship anymore. She really sucks and I'm over this. And honestly, overall, you just should not be subjected to this. So yeah, you're not the jerk, you're not overreacting, and I think it's time for this lady to get out of your house and move on. An entitled Karen tries to get away with stealing products from our store, constantly trying to work the system by claiming that our products are expired, so we might as well give it to her at a discount. And I'm honestly so sick of this Karen, and I really hope she never comes in ever again. Here's what happened. So before I get started, I need to give some small context, just so you know how this happened and understand what the woman's thought process was. I'm one of the leading cashiers at a grocery store chain. I've worked here for many years now, and I've seen a variety of people, including thieves, so I can pick up on it quite easy, and I have some tactics on how to discourage thieves at the register. One of the most common ways people steal at my store is using the sales tag. When an item goes on sale, it's because it's close to the expiration date. We tape on a sales sticker and put it on the sticker shelf. Sometimes people try to peel off the stickers and place them on more expensive items. These aren't automatic stickers and must be inputted manually by the cashier, which does usually deter the thief because the computer will prompt manager permission if a sale input is unusually large for the item. Sometimes I'll do this on a normal item if the price is raised before the sticker is updated. In this case, we compare the barcodes in the item and the machine, we check that the name matches, and then confirm the price raise. If everything checks out, we'll call over a manager to allow the discount sale. The story begins with a woman learning about these discounts and trying to take advantage of it. I'm a primary cashier at the store, which means I'm up at the register the most. Nobody else is at the cash registers unless I specifically request more cashiers. So I encountered this woman one-on-one multiple times and didn't think anything of it. The first time I met her, she brought me 2 loaves of bread, one normal one and one with a price tag. The first thing she told me before I even scanned them was that the sale item was expired and she wanted a bigger discount than what the sale said. Now, per law, we cannot sell expired items. So I outright told her, no, I'm sorry, but legally I can't sell you this. I can ring up the normal bread, but the date on it is still more than a month out, so this is not eligible for a sale. Well, when I said that, she did not like this, but accepted it and left without buying anything. The next time I saw her was a few days later. She tried the same tactic, so I recognized her quickly. This time, she was trying to buy some vitamins. Again, telling her that I cannot sell an expired item, but the date on the non-sale vitamins was close enough to where I could give a discount. She accepted it, bought the vitamins, and then she left. Well, a few minutes later, she returned to the store while I was in the middle of a large transaction and told me it was a tester bottle and if she could just get a different one. Now, I was a bit frantic at the sudden large order, so to save everybody some time, I give good customer service. I double-checked and confirmed the vitamin inner label was marked as tester, and I made a final judgment. I let her get a different bottle without ringing her up, allowing her to keep the discount price I gave without the item being close to the expiration date. Now, this is something I almost never do, but it was busy that day, and it wouldn't be an overall issue, especially when it was a tester bottle for some reason, which I found odd at the time, the fact that there was even a tester on the shelf. But I wanted to offer something kind. After that, we hired a new cashier, who we will call Kay. Kay is not their real name. She was just starting out and still learning the basics, so I didn't want to overwhelm her. She had just completed basic training on the computers and was out on the floor. While the boss cashier was busy, I would sometimes call her over if she looked a little lost and tell Kay about how to use the register and some tips to make everything just work a little bit faster. Now, sale theft wasn't one of the topics I had a chance to get to yet, since she was still learning how to apply the sales price at all. This particular day, Kay was at the register while I was working the floor. I had just had multiple tooth extractions the day before, and I was in too much pain to speak to customers all day. Kay was alright taking over and would page other cashiers to come up and help if she was too stressed out and confused. Well, on this day, wouldn't you have guessed it, but a certain familiar woman appeared at Kay's register. She told me this after the fact, so I knew exactly what happened. Again, she had a sale item and a normal item and tried the same method. One was expired and the other wasn't, and she wanted a large discount. Kay was in a panic, not knowing how to handle the situation. She said she had called a manager to tell her what to do, and the woman suddenly got furious. She said that she wanted a big sale and that cashiers have let her do it before, so Kay just needs to give a discount on the expired item. Now, not knowing what to do, Kay rang up the expired item and called up a manager to give a discount on the sales tag. Kay told me she was afraid of the woman suddenly getting angry and didn't know how to say no without sounding rude. I told her that if the woman appears, the best thing to do is confirm the expired item and say that we can't sell anything expired by law. She could have the normal item at full price if the date is good, but not the expired one. Kay looked relieved, and we also relayed the same sentiment to the other cashiers at the store to be on the lookout for this woman. Well, wouldn't you have guessed it, she appeared once again. By this point, we all had an idea of what she was doing, and we were briefed on her tactics, and she came up to my register with her script. She was talking about how she kept finding expired items and had no idea why, but my bet was that she was taking sales tags and moving them around, and also probably hiding items that were close to their expiration date in the very back, just so she could come back later and retrieve them. She had 2 items as always, and of course, one was expired. And I thought to myself, okay, here we go, back to this repeated dance. I confirmed the date and told her that I can't sell an expired item, even at a discount. She pleaded to just give it to her, but I still reiterated that I cannot sell it to her by law. She could have the regular item, but it wouldn't have a discount. She said that she didn't want it if it didn't have a discount, and that I should just ring up the sale and give it to her just like Kay had done before. She said to me, "Why is this always a problem every time I come in here?" Well, I told her that Kay was still learning, and that right now she wasn't speaking to Kay. She was speaking to the current elder cashier who was telling her that I had to refuse a sale on an expired item. The woman then asked for a manager, which I was happy to page. The manager approached the desk and asked what was going on, so I gave her the quick rundown that she wanted to buy an expired item. The manager nodded with me and turned her attention to the woman. She then repeats exactly what I said. They're right, we can't sell expired items for safety reasons. It shouldn't have been on our shelves, and I'm honestly sorry about that. The manager took the expired item and brought it back to the storage room to place in the bad product box. The woman was now fuming by this point. I asked if she wanted to purchase the normal item that she had, and she just said no. She wanted that one, and she didn't want it if it didn't have a sale. I said I was sorry to hear that, but I simply didn't have much else to say. I already knew that she was attempting to manipulate us in some kind of way. She said to me, "You guys had it on the shelf, but I can't buy it. You're the only ones that stock it. I should just get it. It's already expired. I don't care about that. You're not gonna sell it to anybody else. That new cashier earlier let me get one." I responded to her by saying, like I said, that new cashier was new and didn't know what to do. We can get in trouble if we knowingly sell an expired product and somebody gets sick. This woman then said, "I don't care about that. I wouldn't sue you guys if I did. I can't find it anywhere else. I'm a regular. Can't you just do this one thing?" I responded by saying, "No, I'm sorry, I can't do that by law, but I appreciate you coming in as often as you do." The woman then actually asked if there's another manager that she can speak to. She says to me, "It is ridiculous you keep denying me sales. Do you treat everybody like this?" I said to her, "Well, I deny expired item sales every time I see it. I promise that it's not just you." The entitled Karen responded by saying, "Whatever, just forget about it." She finally left without buying anything, but I get the feeling that she's going to be back and try her tactics on another cashier. Unfortunately for her, every staff member in every department has been told about her in some kind of way, so I seriously doubt she's going to get very far. But for the sake of my sanity, I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Yeah, that entitled Karen was being super obnoxious. Like seriously, she's trying to work the system based on items that she's pulling out the back of the rack that she has clearly hidden back there until it expires, or she's messing with the stickers on the products. Like that's really weird behavior, and you would think after the first few times of trying this, you would eventually give up. So honestly, good for you for sticking to what you know is right and protecting your own job, because I guarantee you some Karen like this would happily try to get you fired, especially if she got sick after you let this slide just this once. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to adjust my wedding date just so my brother can attend my wedding? Because right now, it really seems like everybody's turning against me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance and I have been engaged for over a year, and we finally set our wedding date 6 months ago. We've been planning this day down to the last detail, from the venue to the guest list, making sure everything is perfect. Our families were all on board, and everything seemed like smooth sailing until my brother threw a wrench in the works. He announced that he's been offered an opportunity of a lifetime to work abroad. It's a great chance for him, and we're all happy, but the problem is the start date for his new job is a week before my wedding. And now he's asking me to move my wedding so he can attend both the ceremony and his job orientation. Now, adjusting the wedding date isn't nearly as simple as he makes it out to be. We've already paid non-refundable deposits, and rescheduling would not only be a logistical nightmare, but can also mean losing a significant amount of money. We've chosen our date based on several factors, like venue availability, and to make sure that many of our loved ones can attend as possible. When I explained this to him, he accused me of being inflexible and not considering how important it is for him to have this job opportunity. My parents are siding with him, saying it wouldn't hurt to look into changing the date, but I feel like they're being unfairly pressured over something that was planned well in advance. So honestly, am I the jerk for refusing to change my wedding date? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are not the jerk, and I think your brother is out of his mind if he thinks it's appropriate for him to make this kind of request. Like seriously, this is not okay. You've put down a lot of money to make this wedding happen. So for him to be like, wow, why are you not thinking about me? This is like a really good opportunity for me. You just don't understand how important this job is for me. Well, clearly your brother doesn't care about how important your wedding is for you. You've done all this legwork to get this wedding ready, and now he's saying you need to change your stuff around just to fit his schedule. That, in my opinion, is completely unreasonable. And if he really wants to still be in attendance for this wedding, then he should probably jump on Zoom or something like that just to see the wedding take place. Like, why are you responsible for changing everything around just because he can't attend? That seems incredibly selfish, and in my opinion, I don't think that you're the problem in this scenario. Am I the jerk for taking my grandchildren to Disney for the first time without their mother, as well as refusing to apologize when they confronted me about it? Because right now, my daughter-in-law is furious with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I recently babysat my grandchildren for a period of 4 nights and 5 days, so my son and his wife could attend a wedding in Mexico and spend a few days on vacation. They approached me since her mother would not be available, and I initially said I wasn't comfortable with that. It seemed like a long time to watch the kids, and she has point blank told me that the woman's family is more important than the man's, so I was irritated that I was being asked and not her mother. But I will admit that I did give in when my son became very emotional, but I felt and feel like they were being very manipulative. While I had the kids, I was invited to a birthday at Epcot, and I really wanted to go. It didn't even occur to me to run it by my son or my daughter-in-law, as I had the kids for an extended period of time, and obviously they knew they would be going where I went. My daughter-in-law had previously mentioned wanting to save up for Disney, but she has said that about a lot of things, and never made me aware it was something super special to her. Also, it was Epcot. It's not like I took them to Magic Kingdom, and they had some magical moment of seeing their favorite character. When they returned and found out, my daughter-in-law was furious and burst into tears. She actually said that I stole one of her kids first, and then she called me entitled. To be honest, I didn't react well to being called entitled, especially when she was the one who had previously demanded that I babysit her kids. My son asked me to apologize as she was distraught over missing her first Disney trip, but I declined and I asked them to leave. My son reached out again and said that I should have asked for something that big, and his wife somehow feels robbed. I know she's a huge Disney person, but it was Epcot, not quintessential Disney, and I don't feel like I should have had to miss out on a birthday party that I wanted to attend. I told my son that I am not apologizing for anything, and maybe they should think about how they made me feel when they didn't respect my initial no. And with that, my son asked me to post this online because he feels the internet is going to show me the error of my ways. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? For starters, your son and his wife absolutely manipulated you into watching their kids for a week. They imposed those kids on you and more or less strong-armed you into watching them even though you really didn't want to do it for that long. And the grandmother of this story has it right. It's only Epcot. This isn't actually Disney. Like, it's not the real Disney World experience. So for this daughter-in-law to suddenly just be so emotional and crying about all of this, honestly, in my opinion, is just another one of their manipulation tactics. Like, they're just trying to make you feel guilty about a birthday party that you clearly had every intention of going to. And here's the thing, you were still watching the kids. They came along with you just fine, they were safe, and you were watching them the entire time. It's not like you just left them alone to go to a birthday party. I'm willing to bet that they were attached to your hip like the entire time. Also, I'm just gonna say it, Disney adults are incredibly weird. And it sounds like the daughter-in-law is 100% a weird Disney adult. And I'm not talking about people who are like fans of Disney, because that's an entirely different and normal thing. This is instead an adult who makes Disney their entire personality. And based on this reaction from the daughter-in-law, it really seems like she's one of those people. And with that in mind, she deserves absolutely no apology. She can pout, she can whine, she can do whatever she wants. But seriously, this is not that big of a deal. But what do you think? Leave a comment down below. Do you think the grandma of this story is in the wrong for taking their kids to a birthday party at Epcot? Or do you think this really wasn't that big of a deal and that the parents are absolutely overreacting? Leave a comment down below. We would love to hear what you have to say. Am I the jerk for being too hard on my dad by saying that he let me down when he chose to be married over what was best for me? Because right now I feel like I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my dad and I started therapy 3 weeks ago, and last week during our third session, I opened up bluntly about how I feel like my dad let me down and failed me by prioritizing being married and his own happiness. This was not the first time I tried speaking openly to my dad about this, but it is the first time that he said he appeared willing to listen, and the first time he took the harm it was doing to our relationship seriously. Now, let me explain. My mom passed away when I was just a baby, and my dad was a single dad until I was about 4 years old. It was then that he met my stepmom, who is his wife, by the name of Sharon. Sharon is not her real name. She was a divorced mom with a 9-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter. They got married when I was 5 years old, and trust me when I say this, Sharon's kids never liked me. They always hated me. When my dad and Sharon first got married, I thought of them as my siblings and I loved them totally, but they were really mean to me. They'd say they hated me, that everybody hated me, and that I should just leave. They encouraged me to run away because nobody would miss me. They said I would never be their sister or their family, and I was a weirdo for calling them my siblings. Well, Sharon noticed this more than my dad, but I used to tell my dad, and when things got bad, I asked if we could just leave. But he'd always try and reassure me, but was very dismissive of how much it was hurting me. He told me we couldn't leave because Sharon was his wife, and we are all a family now, and you can't just leave family. Sharon only said anything when her kids made me cry. I have 2 half-siblings from my dad and Sharon, and I was so excited when they were born, and I bonded with them, and I loved helping with them and playing with them. But then my step-siblings decided to use them against me, and they were older, and Sharon would let them do more. And eventually, they told her half-siblings that if they wanted to do cool stuff with them, they had to say no to playing with me, and eventually, rejecting me became the normal thing. My younger siblings would repeat a lot of what my step-siblings would say to me. This continued even after my step-siblings moved out, because they would take our younger siblings out, or they would visit them and bring them gifts. From year to year, I've been withdrawn and I just stopped trying. I don't try to do anything with my younger siblings, I don't hang out with dad like I used to, and my focus is just on moving out. My dad started to notice late last year, and he sent me to a therapist and then decided family therapy was needed for the 2 of us. And this is when last week happened. My dad looked really shocked at first and he was apologetic. After we got home, Sharon asked me why I had been so hard on my dad. My dad and Sharon argued about it, and I spent the rest of last week trying to be alone with my thoughts. Our next session is tomorrow. Sharon apologized for saying what she did, but reiterated that she feels like I handled it badly. My dad tried to talk to me since the appointment, but I do not know how to talk to him anymore without a therapist present. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? This is really awful because it seems like Sharon basically knew how bad her kids were treating you, and she didn't do anything to try and make the situation better. Like seriously, that is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. Not to mention the fact that your dad just turned a blind blind eye all the time over it. Like, that honestly is so unacceptable, and I seriously just can't imagine growing up in that kind of circumstance. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my stepdaughter's tuition, all because she never liked me? Because right now she is calling me out, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I married my husband 6 years ago, and we've been together for about 8 years. He has 2 children. He has a son who's 20 years old and a daughter who's 19 years old, who we will call Emily. Emily is not her real name. I have a daughter who's 9 years old, and I was a widow when I met my husband. Emily had severe issues with her father getting married again, while her brother got along very well with me and my daughter, and he is the best older brother out there. Emily, on the other hand, did not like me, and she treated my daughter very badly, to the point where she almost never left my arms when her sister was home. When Emily was 15, she was permanently moved to live with her mother. My deceased husband left me a small fortune when he passed that I never touched since I had a good job, and I never wanted anything more. So last year, I decided to help pay for my stepson's tuition, and I am planning to do the same with my daughter. Well, my stepdaughter is very angry now, and she is calling me a jerk. But honestly, am I? I never had a good relationship with her. She always hated me, and I don't think she's become a good person, and honestly, I would rather leave more for my daughter than pay for my ungrateful stepdaughter. My husband is sad because he thinks that I'm being unjust, and I'm really sad about it, but I still don't feel like I'm the jerk. So honestly, am I in the wrong in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all, because she has no claim over your money. She treated you like garbage. She hated you from the get-go, and she didn't even give you a chance. It doesn't even sound like you were a bad stepmother when she was growing up. Like, it literally just sounds like she decided that she doesn't like you, and then no matter how hard you tried, she still treated you and your daughter like garbage. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because I feel she's reaping exactly what she sowed. And if she's unhappy with the result, then she should have been a better person earlier in her life. A scary, thieving bully demands that I take him home in order to give him my fundraising earnings. So I decide to maliciously comply, leading him directly to my neighbor, who just so happens to be a former gang member, who puts my bully in his place in a beautiful way. Here's what happened. So I was in middle school in the 90s. I loved growing up then, and even though there were gangs in my area, I generally avoided trouble. One of my classes had this big field trip planned, and they had us selling chocolates to raise money for our trip. I was pretty good at it, and I was selling at a good rate. I would take the public transportation bus to school, and my stop was about 2 blocks from my home. I got off my stop one day with my box of chocolates, and there was this older kid, probably 16 or 17, who was pretty big for his age, just hanging out right there. He saw me and came towards me. The guy is very clearly a gangbanger. We call him Peso, and he comes up to me and says, "Hey, where you from?" Now, he was asking what gang I was from. It's not the first time I get challenged like this, so I just reply by saying, "I'm not in a gang, man. I'm just a junior high kid." Peso looks at my box of chocolates and takes it from me. He says to me, "What's this?" I tell him it's nothing and it's something for school. He opens the box and sees a bunch of dollars in there. He grabs the bills, which is maybe $15, which is my sale for the day, and takes a bunch of chocolates as well. "Tomorrow, you're gonna give me $20 more. If you don't, we're gonna have a real problem." I walk away feeling scared and really mad. I realize I'm gonna have to pay back the lost money for my birthday money, and I definitely did not want to give this guy any more money. I think about it, and I decide I'll get off at a later bus stop from now on, opting to just walk a little bit more just to avoid this guy. And when the next day rolls around, this is what I do. I stuff my box in my backpack just in case, and I exit about 2 stops later. I don't see the guy, and I think I have solved my problem. Then I get to the liquor store a block away from my home, and who do I see but this overgrown idiot Peso. "Hey man, you didn't forget about me, did you?" I said, "Look man, I don't have any money right now. I don't even have my chocolates. I left them at home." Now, I really shouldn't have said that. "Okay, let's go to your house. You're gonna give me the money or something else if you don't got it." I began getting nervous. My mom is at work and my grandma is home. I definitely don't want to bring him home with her there. I glance at him and notice the tattoos on his arms. And at this point, I saw the perfect opportunity for malicious compliance. I told him that I don't think that's a good idea. I then said, "Why don't you just let me go, man?" Peso then grabs me by the collar and says, "I tell you what to do and you do it. You understand?" So I nod my head and I tell him to follow me. Now, it's time to give just a little bit of background. The neighbor that lived in the house next to mine was a veteran of one of the biggest, most notorious gangs in my city. He was in his 40s and a really chill dude. He loved my grandma because she would often share plates of food she made with him and his wife, and he was fond fond of me because I taught his 8-year-old boy how to play baseball. His son had a disability, a problem with one of his legs, so most other kids wouldn't play with him, but I often did. Let's call my neighbor OG. OG always had a bunch of guys over at his house. He made sure they never caused any problems, and they were all respectful towards my family in particular. Now, back to Peso. The tattoos on his arms is when I realized he was in the same gang as OG. I have a big smile on my face as I'm walking home, and Peso asked me, "Why are you smiling, idiot?" I say, "No reason," and I keep walking home. As we get closer, I see a bunch of guys hanging out at OG's house. Peso narrows his eyes, then smiles as he recognizes some of the guys. We get to OG's house, and Peso says, "Wait here, let me talk to my homies." OG is sitting on his porch, and Peso starts greeting some of the guys and then heads towards OG, greeting him in a reverential manner. OG notices me and says my name. "Hey, what's up?" Peso turns to look at me, and I say, "Peso told me to wait here. I have to go home and give him money." OG then stands up and says, "Why do you have to give him money?" I say, "Because he told me yesterday at my bus stop that the $15 in chocolate that he took from me wasn't enough, and I had to give him more today." Peso begins to speak. "You know this kid, OG?" OG gives him the scariest look I've ever seen and tells him to shut up. OG then looks back at me. "Is this from the chocolates you are selling?" I say, "Yes." OG then asks me how many chocolates I have left to sell. I say about 50, and he tells me not to worry. Peso is gonna pay me for the 50 I have left, plus 20 for the day before, and an extra 50 for my trouble. He tells me to keep whatever else I sell. He then tells me to go home, and Peso would be back later with my money. Well, about an hour later, there's a knock at my door. Peso's standing there, and he has an envelope in his hands. He says, "Here's the 120, little homie. I'm sorry I messed up. Do you have Nintendo? I brought you some games." Now, when he said that, I just stood there stunned, thinking how I never would have guessed that getting robbed had so many benefits. I didn't see Peso too many times after that, but whenever I did, he would wave at me and he never bothered me ever again. Wow, talk about making friends with the right people. That is seriously an insane situation, because who would have thought that your neighbor would somehow be over the guy trying to rob you? And one of the comments in this post itself pretty much put it best. They said that sometimes it pays to have friends in low places. And honestly, I couldn't agree more. So good for the original poster for using their head and getting out of that situation, because I know if I was in their shoes, I would definitely be panicking. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I found a hidden camera in my bathroom that has been secretly recording me and my 21-year-old niece. And at this point, I'm so disgusted that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so as the title states, I found a hidden camera in my laundry basket in my restroom. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I've been married to my 33-year-old husband for 6 years. We've been together since I was 16 years old, and recently his family, namely his dad, his stepmom, and brother, moved into our 3 bedrooms. Now, I mentioned the number of bedrooms because after his family moved in, 2 months later, my niece and nephew asked to stay with us also, and this is due to their mom leaving the state that we all live in. So my father-in-law and his wife got a room, and my nephew and brother-in-law roomed together as well. So that left my niece rooming with me and my husband. It's a big room and we have our own restroom. Plus, my niece did not want to sleep in the living room and felt comfortable being in the room with my husband and myself. My husband's work schedule is different than mine and my niece. When he gets home, my niece and I are heading to work since we work together. One of the reasons my niece didn't mind rooming with us is because mostly it was just me and my niece that shared the room. He would just have Saturdays off, and my niece and I worked that day, so I'm always in the room with them. So fast forward to this Thursday at like 2 in the morning. I was using the bathroom when I noticed a blue light in my laundry basket which faced the shower. I looked through it and I found a camera attached to a portable charger. Now I was shocked and I was so confused. So I texted my husband asking him what the camera was all about. He looks at the message but doesn't respond. So I call, but I get no answer. So I get the camera, I break it, and I throw it all away. At this point, he writes me saying how I could either leave him or kick him out. I'm so upset by his actions and I'm really creeped out. I kicked him out, but I'm still planning on leaving by May. I only have a part-time job and I started to apply at more jobs for more income, but I'm still going through a downward spiral because I don't know who I married or how to tell my niece that she's been violated. I know he used the camera to watch her, but I don't know how long this has been going on. So I seriously feel so disgusted and I don't know what to do. Yeah, this is really messed up and I would not be taking this lightly. First of all, you need to get that camera out of the trash, get the SD card, and then go to the police. This is very serious and there's no way you should let this slide. Like, it doesn't matter that the niece is an adult. This is highly violating and so unbelievably disgusting. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be going to the police and being like, hey, this is what's going on. Because what your husband did is absolutely unacceptable, and there is no reason that he should get away with that. My entitled manager demands that I take no more overtime, as she claims that I'm stealing time from the company. But then, not even a month later, she starts complaining that I'm not going the extra mile, denying in front of HR that she ever said I can't do overtime anymore. So I decide to forward some emails over to HR just to put my manager in her place, resulting in her quitting the job less than a year later. Here's what happened. So I've been working at this job for some years when I got a new manager. A month or so into her working there, she came into my office and told me I wasn't allowed to work overtime anymore, and if I have any issue, we can discuss it. The way she said it too, by the way, sounded like she was expecting this to really hurt me. I sent an email to confirm the conversation that we had, and her response basically said, correct, there is no more time theft. Now, I really didn't like that accusation. I usually stayed a little late by 30 minutes at most to finish up projects. A lot of projects come in last minute, and other managers were thankful for my help. So I quit staying to finish projects, and I wouldn't start a new one if there wasn't enough time. No real issues, but honestly, some projects started falling through the cracks. I let the other managers know that my manager told me no more overtime, and I'm just following orders. Fast forward barely a month later, and as I'm leaving for the day, she rushes to me asking if I can work on, and you guessed it, a last-minute project. It's potentially worth millions of dollars. I explained how I've got plans and I'm not about to be a thief. Well, the next day was too quiet. In the afternoon, I get a request to have a meeting with my manager and HR. Usually, you get a written complaint beforehand, so I'm a little taken off guard. I could at least be a little bit prepared. At the meeting, my manager reads off grievances like it's an intervention. She frames it like I have antisocial behavior issues. I'm insubordinate and I don't go the extra mile. If you let her keep going, I wouldn't be surprised if I was somehow to blame for the company not reaching its goals. When she finally finished, and she had to have started writing this the night before and into the next day, I finally asked if it's okay if I have my say. I pointed out a lot was just her opinion, and I'm overall well liked. I always do exactly what she says. However, my manager likes to constantly move projects around while I'm working on them, and I'm not allowed any overtime. She then says that she denies ever saying this, so I forward the email to HR. My manager then starts backtracking that she didn't mean it permanently. HR then takes me off the call for a bit, and when they come back, it's just HR, and I start by saying that I'm not citing anything. They tell me let's agree to disagree, and that this has been one big miscommunication, and they appreciate all the work that I do. I asked to confirm if this was going to be held against me in any way, and they said no. They went on to say that if I can stay late sometimes, that's great, but it's okay that I leave after my 8 hours. Eventually, my manager later quit in less than a year, and honestly, I was very happy to see her go. Okay, the part of this story that really drives me crazy is the fact that the manager actually tried to lie in front of HR that she didn't say explicitly that you can't steal any more time. Like, this is why you have a follow-up email after a meeting with your manager in writing, so you can have this on file, on record, just in case they try to pull this kind of garbage. Like, this is absolutely insane. In my opinion, I think the original poster 100% should have put like a formal complaint in and been like, oh yeah, my manager definitely lied about having a no overtime policy. Because now she's trying to use that against you and be like, wow, you don't go the extra mile. Well, it's like, lady, you took the extra mile away. What are you talking about? It's like they want you to work extra and do all this overtime hours, but they don't want it to count towards your paycheck. So it's like, okay, which one is it? Do I get paid for the overtime, or do you want me to work for free? Because that's definitely not going to happen. So honestly, good for the original poster for having all their ducks in a row. If they didn't have that email at the ready to send to HR, then this really could have been a different conversation, because that manager very clearly wanted to play both sides of the fence. And unfortunately, it would have been at your expense if you didn't have that email. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay for my brother's wedding after he blatantly excluded my wife all over an argument that happened ages ago? Because right now the entire family has turned on me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so here's the deal. My brother is getting married, and he's been planning this extravagant wedding that's way beyond his pay grade. He asked me to help out financially, and because we're family, I agreed. I'm not exactly rolling in dough, but I've done okay for myself, and I wanted to support him. Fast forward to last week, and he drops the bomb that my wife isn't invited. His reason, you might ask? His fiance and my wife had a falling out years ago over some really petty nonsense, and they haven't haven't really talked ever since. I told him that's ridiculous. It's water under the bridge, and they're both adults who can handle being at the same event. But he wouldn't budge. He said it was his fiance's day and she didn't want any negative energy. I argue that it is also his day, and as his brother, I should be there with my wife. It got heated, and I ended up telling him if my wife isn't welcome, then he can forget about my financial help. Now the whole family is blowing up my phone, saying I'm being unreasonable and that I'm ruining what should have been the happiest day of his life. They're all on his side, saying it's just one day and my wife can suck it up and stay at home. But I don't see why she should be punished for something so trivial that happened ages ago. So am I the jerk for standing by my wife and pulling my financial support for a wedding that we're being partially excluded from? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your brother and his fiance are being completely unreasonable. Like, for starters, it really seems like they're all being super selfish. They really want you to pay for this wedding, but also exclude your wife and for you to be okay with that. If I was in your shoes, I would be upset as well. There's no way I would take that. Also, why do you have to be the one to pay for everything? It seems like they're all ganging up on you, not because they care about your wife showing up to the wedding or not, but because the rest of the family doesn't want to pay for anything with this wedding. Like, it really seems like your extended family is only using this reason as a way to be like, yeah, you have to pay for it. Why would you do that? As if they care about your wife showing up in the slightest. I also completely agree with the original poster when they say that, yeah, they're both adults and they can absolutely both handle being at the same event even though they don't like each other. It's not like the original poster's wife is going to go out of their way to try and ruin anything. Chances are they're going to be in the background and no one's going to even notice them. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think your family is being incredibly selfish for assuming that they deserve that money for that wedding. And in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would not only not go to that wedding, but I definitely would not pay for a single thing. My mom's boyfriend is ruining my relationship with my mother. And now, right before my wedding, he's causing drama by refusing to show up, all because my mom told him exactly how I feel about him. And I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My mom has been dating David for over 3 years. David is not his real name. There have been red flags since the beginning, and it's gotten worse over time. My sister and I cannot stand him, but my mom is extremely defensive about him and has made it very clear that she will always take his side. Whenever I bring up concerns, she said it's a misunderstanding or his sense of humor and we just don't understand. Before mom and David started dating, my mom was involved in mine and my sister's lives. She was always very involved in her grandchildren's lives and was even planning on building a home on my sister's land so she could live closer and be involved with the grandkids. My mom currently lives 20 minutes away from my sister and I live out of state, about a 4-hour flight away from them. David is just an awful person. My sister and I have tried to be supportive and forgiving and just be happy for my mom, but it's getting impossible to ignore it anymore. Here's just a few of the red flags that we've noticed. He always has an excuse about why my mother can't see the grandkids. I won't go into detail on this part based on the sensitive nature of some of the reasons, but it's always been a huge concern of mine. He's also a loser and a mooch, and most of the time that he's been with my mom, he's been unemployed, meaning that he lives in her house rent-free. He also bullies her. For example, on Christmas, my sister got my mom an Apple Watch, and he started making snide remarks, insulting my mother's intelligence and ability to use the watch. Another one is when my mom cooked her mother's recipe for some food that she liked, and he was insulting the recipe and telling her that she was doing it wrong. He is also in a ton of debt, but the reasons don't make any sense. They range from having a fake cancer diagnosis to his ex-wife, all the way over to his business partner stealing from him. One time when my mom was visiting me in Arizona, he told my mother he had COVID and told her that she wasn't allowed to come home. And this is the home that she owns and he lives in for free. She flew home and gave him a COVID test and he tested negative. He literally lied to her, and I'm not sure if it was a power play or some kind of attention grab. I also overheard him talking awfully to my mom at my niece's birthday party because he was mad my father was also there. He tried to get my mom to marry him after 10 months of dating so he could get her health insurance. I told my mother I did not approve of that decision, and I'm pretty sure she secretly married him, but I'm honestly not sure. My mother secretly moved him into her house after 6 months of dating and lied to us about it. Once he moved in, he made her get rid of all of her sentimental furniture and artwork, many of which were her late parents. My mother has never lied or hid anything from us before. This is all very new behavior for her. Everything eventually came to a head this weekend. Friday, I flew in for my uncle's funeral, and I only fly home once or twice a year. I was at my sister's house and my mom texted us asking if we had plans for dinner. We told her to come over. We had just ordered family Chinese-style Mexican food and would be hanging out. My mom said that we should just eat and she would swing by later. 5 hours go by and we don't hear from her at all. It's now 9:00 p.m. and I remember because my sister has little kids, so 9 p.m. is too late for guests to come over. I texted my mom and I asked why she didn't come. She said she got busy with errands but was on her way. I told her it was too late because the kids were getting ready for bed and having tantrums from being too tired. Yesterday, my mom came to my sister's house and I asked her what errand was more important than having dinner with me, since I never see her anymore. She then told us she went out to dinner with David and got some gas. Then my sister and I explained why we didn't like David and how we feel like my mom doesn't care about our relationships anymore. She doesn't even see her grandkids anymore, and we feel like a low priority, and we are concerned about him being an unhealthy person. I was so hurt and angry that she blew me off for dinner and then tried to hide it, and then she had dinner with him instead. Today at my uncle's funeral, my mom pulled me aside and said she talked to David. She told him our concerns about him being controlling and pulling her away from us, and she started crying and said that he is now refusing to come to my wedding in 2 weeks. I told her that his decision was just proving mine and my sister's point more, and that it was really messed up for him to bail on the wedding and a trip to Arizona. He had committed to a vacation house with my mother and her sisters. I understand him not liking me, but you would think that he would want to be there for my mother to make the day special for her. She has been so excited for the wedding. My mother started yelling at me and told me it's all my fault. She said I'm judgmental and accused me of lying and making up stories about David. I'm honestly so hurt and I've been crying all day. Although I'm relieved he won't be at the wedding to cause drama, I'm honestly deeply offended. And I think he is choosing not to come because he knows it will hurt my mom. She made it clear this is my fault and she is on his side. And now I feel like he will make her cut us out completely. I don't know what to do. I want my mom to be happy, but I can't support this relationship. What should I do? Honestly, it really seems like your mom is in an awful relationship. This guy is a freeloader. He lives in this house rent-free, and he is using your mom. That's the only thing that's happening right now. And that is honestly so tragic because she doesn't deserve that. He bullies her, he talks down to her, he lies to her, he does all these awful things. And yes, he is 100% pulling her away from the family. He doesn't sound like a trustworthy person at all, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Unfortunately, I'm not sure that you can do anything to change her mind. She's stuck in the middle of this, and hopefully one day she can see what's going on and come back around. So in the meantime, if I was in your shoes, I would try to keep things open and just keep inviting her. I would just keep saying that yes, you're welcome and I love you and I want you in my life, because I can only imagine what it's like living with David. That guy sounds absolutely awful, and I can only imagine what your mom goes through on a daily basis. A crazy entitled man assaults my general manager in the middle of our lunch rush, complaining that his eggs are cold and that his wife's nachos are not to their liking. Things got so bad that even customers were trying to get them to calm down while I called the police to try and get this taken care of. And I'm honestly still blown away by their public freakout. Here's what happened. When I first started waiting tables, it was at a Denny's in southern Missouri. It was the only Denny's in like a 50-mile radius, so we had a lot of customers visit from out of the woodwork. It was lunchtime and my shift was nearing an end. I got sat with this couple, and from the minute I greeted them, they had an attitude. Just hateful looks and a harsh tone when ordering. I get their drinks and the woman says that she ordered Dr. Pepper and not a Coke. Now, this is not a big deal. I change out the drink and I go to take their order. And this is when I see that I have Coke written down for her drink. So she definitely ordered a Coke, but whatever. The man looks at me and says his wife is very particular and she needs her food a certain way or she won't eat it. So I think to myself, why are you at Denny's then? She then proceeds to order nachos from Denny's and wants all the toppings in little bowls on the side so she can dress them herself. The man orders some kind of breakfast platter with medium eggs, and as I walk away to put in the order, the woman stops me and asked if the nachos are good. I looked at her straight in the face and I said, well ma'am, they're nachos from Denny's. I get the order in, I go back and I make sure her nachos are made totally deconstructed, and then I move on to my next table while checking in on my other tables and giving refills if needed. I hear my name called and I go back to get this couple's food. The nachos are deconstructed, the eggs are over medium. I think to myself, cool, let's get this done. I dropped off their food, I get them refills, and I ask them if everything looks right. They say yes, and I'm off again. The restaurant is full at this point, and I was actually taking tables in a section that wasn't mine because one of the newer servers just couldn't handle it. So I'm over at this other section, and when I glance across, I notice the couple shooting daggers at me and looking visibly upset. I get whatever I'm doing done, and then I make my way over to their table. They had barely barely even touch their food. I asked them if everything is tasting alright, and the look I got in return told me that the answer was no. I ask what's wrong with the food, and if there's something else they would rather try. The man then starts laying into me about the nachos, saying they were soggy and inedible. Remember, they're the ones that put them together. I brought the chips and the toppings. He then picked up one of the chips and was like, "Here, eat this," and tried to shove it in my mouth. I told him I did not want to eat his nachos, and that if they were really that bad, I was happy to replace them for another meal. But they are just totally ignoring that offer, not even acknowledging that I'm offering to basically pay for the nachos in order to give them different food. The woman stands up and tells me that a replacement is not the point. The food should be edible when it comes out of the kitchen. I take a step back and I tell her that I totally agree. I'm sorry this happened. And at this point, the only thing I can do is replace or just comp the meal. Now, she was a bigger white lady, probably about 5'10" with box braids, as well as double XL acrylic nails. So when she stood up to me, I backed away and probably looked like a kicked puppy. This lady totally came off as someone that would fight their server over Denny's nachos. I told her about my only other option beyond a comp or a replacement would have to come directly from my manager. So I immediately sent my general manager out to talk to them. She approached the table, and before she got 2 words out, the man stood up and started yelling in her face about how his eggs were cold. Now, as a side note, he's been here with his food for 30 minutes without touching it, so of course it's gonna be cold. Each time my general manager takes a step away from this guy, he takes a step towards her until she's backed into a corner. Then I notice he has something in his hand. I look a little closer and I notice that it's an egg, one of his cold over medium eggs. The man then proceeds to slap her with the egg. At that point, my general manager has already told the guy to leave a bunch of times, and other customers got involved trying to get him to leave. As soon as he touched her, I was calling 911. When he realized that we had called 911 on him and his wife or his girlfriend, they hightailed it out of there. Now, they didn't tip me, but I had other server sections slide me 5s after it all happened. I assume they feel bad for me, but I feel bad for my general manager. If it had been me, I'd never sleep again due to the embarrassment of being slapped by an old man with an over medium egg in front of all of Denny's. This was about 4 years ago, and I never saw those people again. But if I did, like at Walmart or something else, I would definitely recognize them almost immediately. Wow, I literally cannot understand some people. They go into Denny's expecting some like high quality food, but they forget they're eating at Denny's. Denny's, at least in America, is not like the pinnacle of culinary achievement. It's not even that good of food. It's a place you stop at when you're traveling, or it's the middle of the night and you gotta eat somewhere with your friends after like going out and doing something. It's almost never your first option, and it always seems like you're just settling to go to Denny's just to get some kind of food in your system. So for these people to go into a Denny's and act like this, literally pretending like they're Gordon Ramsay dissecting all this food, is absolutely insane to me. Not to mention the fact that they assaulted this manager with an egg. Like seriously, who slaps somebody with an egg all because you're unhappy with your food? You knew where you were eating. You literally came into a Denny's in southern Missouri. Like seriously, you had to know what you're signing up for. So truly, I'm so sorry for the general manager 4 years ago. They absolutely did not deserve that, and hopefully both you and your general manager never have to deal with anything like that ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being honest about disliking my nephew's name and thus upsetting my sister and her husband? Because right now her husband is calling me out, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister gave birth to my nephew in January, and she gave him a name that I dislike, and that name is Philip, and no offense to anybody named Philip. The two of us have always been so close, and we always swore that we would be honest with each other when asked. I mean, that has always been our relationship. We feel it keeps us close and stops hard feelings because if we don't want to hear something, we just don't ask. There has never been a time I didn't want her honesty, so I will ask her anything looking for an honest answer. My sister is a little more sensitive, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I get her not asking everything if she feels like it would hurt her feelings. Well, she asked me what I thought of the name because according to her, I was the only one who didn't comment about loving the name. And I'm not saying every single person she meets compliments the name, just that those in her and her husband's circle absolutely did. So 2 to 3 weeks after my nephew was born, she asked me if I didn't like his name. She said my reaction was very muted and it made her wonder. So I was honest, and I told her that I didn't like the name, but I reassured her that I love my nephew very much. She asked me some more questions that I answered honestly, honestly, and I was even open about names I would use for my future child when asked. My sister made a joke that it was weird to find a topic that we were so opposite on, but she was glad that we talked. Now, I didn't think anything more of it, but then a week and a half ago, my sister's husband made a sarcastic remark that he was surprised I would spend money on such a nice gift for my nephew, especially one that has his name on it, when I don't even like the name. My sister told him to stop and apologize for his reaction. He grumbled and she grumbled back at him. Then he got me alone and told me I had made my sister cry when I told her I disliked my nephew's name. He then asked me how I would like it if she said that to me, and I told him I would expect her to be honest if she disliked the name I picked for my future kids, and I asked her the question. I said we don't lie to each other, and it's been that way since we were kids. He said he had no idea what kind of name I would like if I disliked Philip, and if I would dislike the middle name as well, but it would take an awful kind of person to tell a new parent they dislike the name they chose for their child. And he said I broke my sister's heart, which should make me feel so ashamed. I spoke to my sister after that, and I apologized for upsetting her. She wanted to know where I learned it, but answered herself before she finished the question. She apologized to me and admitted that she was upset, but that she should have known better than to ask the question, that I didn't go out of my way to give feedback on the name, and she knows herself better than that. She apologized for her husband again and told me not to listen. But then her husband reached out again and told me my sister is trying to spare my feelings. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, first of all, I don't think you're the jerk for being honest with your sister, but unfortunately, it kind of seems like you upset your brother-in-law. He definitely got caught in the crossfire when it comes to you not liking the name Philip, and it seems like he's way more upset about this than your sister is. And here's the thing, if you have an open communication with your sister about everything, and you guys are like super honest about everything that's going on in your life or anything like that, in my opinion, I think that's fantastic. That's great. But clearly, based on the way your brother-in-law's acting, he was definitely not ready for that. So in my opinion, it doesn't really seem like your sister is that upset, but rather her husband seems to be like determined to cause problems. Like he is really upset that you don't like this name, even though you didn't go out of your way to say anything about the name. So hopefully your sister's husband can like get it together in some kind of way, because clearly this guy is very upset. Am I the jerk for not wanting to invite my mom to live with me after her man broke up with her, leaving her with literally no one in her life? Because right now she is guilt tripping me hard, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. This story also came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. So ever since I remember, we can't live close by my mom without her trying to completely control my life. I'm a 29-year-old female and I grew up in a small village in a non-English country in Europe. As a child, I was not allowed to go further from our house than where I was still visible, which at that age still made sense. She didn't let me choose the high school I went to, even though the one I went to was right next to an art school that I wanted to go to. The community in my school was also terrible. I was always pushed aside, I had no friends and all this other stuff. But by her opinion, it was entirely my fault and not the fact that she didn't let me go to school parties or the weekend activities. I found friends through one of my hobbies and we held meetings on Saturdays. I had to go home by 6 o'clock or she was hysterical and calling me just to shout at me. She even got a hold of a friend's phone number and was calling her if I didn't pick up. Fast forward and I eventually went to university, but I was not allowed to go to the university that I wanted to go to, which was in our capital city, despite the fact that I got accepted there. This is because she wanted me to go to another one in a city that was closer to us. Now, as a fun fact, in our village, there are daily about 8 buses going straight to the capital, and this is about a 1.5 hour trip. Meanwhile, I had to go to a third city, switch buses, and ride another one for another hour to where her choice of university was located. But at least I got to stay at my choice of student hostel. At first, I was happy. I was finally at the university. I had some freedom. Well, or so I thought. She called me every single day, and it didn't matter if I was in class. If she didn't call me, I had to call her. And if I didn't, she was nonstop calling me the next day, with the first line being, "Did you forget something?" And you would think at university you would have fun and go to parties, right? Well, as you could probably guess, I couldn't do that. My dad passed away when I was 14 years old, so the government provided some money to me, which she got into her bank account, by the way, and refused to hand it to me except if I went home every single weekend. And she only gave me an account to barely be enough for the week. I had to pay for the student hostel and the bus tickets from this money as well. If I even dared to say that I'd like to stay because there's an event or we have a party or we're having like a board game competition, she would just start drama, which included guilt tripping and emotionally manipulating me. me. She would say to me, "Oh, I see. You don't need your mother. You don't love me anymore, right? I can just pass away and you just don't even care, right?" And eventually her crying voice was just a basic part of the conversation. She basically forced me home, and I couldn't be part of the otherwise awesome community that we had. Otherwise, I hated the university, and I left it after a year of struggling and moved overseas. We had a great relationship after that, and I really have to thank the 2,000-kilometer distance for helping with that. 5 years later, during COVID, I moved closer to her, but was still not in our original country. But unfortunately, she lives in this other country too, and a couple of years ago, she claimed that she doesn't want to be alone. She has a partner, but it's like a war zone between them, and they are about to break up. About 5 weeks ago, she went on a 3-week-long medical trip, which second day, her man said that she's not allowed to go back to their flat because he knows that she's not gone for medical reasons, but instead she's gone to cheat on him, which is not true because yes, he does have mental problems. So she claimed that she started to look for available flats, but as I had to realize, she was looking for ones where she could move in with me. I mean, I told her that I'm planning to move from where I live now, but it is a fact that I'll never move in with her. She is simply not good for my mental health, and I told her this the moment I realized she was planning this. For the rest of the time, we barely talked and never about this. Anyways, fast forward to the last day of her trip when she called me crying and screaming while I was at work. She said to me, "You don't even care if your mother ends up on the streets. I was here for 3 weeks, and you didn't ever think of offering me to stay at your flat? I can't believe how rude and disgusting you are. I didn't raise you like that." Well, after listening to her cry and huffing about for 5 minutes, I asked her and I said, "Why do I have to offer that? If I know I have a problem, then I'll ask for help, but you didn't do that." She then said to me, "Last time you said you don't want anyone to go to your house, so I don't go if I'm not invited." And then the call was ended. I have to say, at this point with neighbors and friends, we tried to tell her for years now to break up with him and move away, but in her eyes, we were all in the wrong. And yes, I did say that I don't want guests in my house, but it was literally 3 years ago, and she hates the fact that I have 3 cats and a dog in my flat, and if she sits down, she'll be all fuzzy with hair. And trust me, she never missed the opportunity to tell me about it. On the other hand though, for like a year and a half, I have a flatmate that's freshly out of a bad relationship who she is always bad-mouthing. Even today, when I'm writing this, she refused to hand over the 400 euros that someone paid me from our home country for something that I sold there, and she's the only one who still has a bank account there, so it was paid to her, and she was expected to hand me the money. Well, now she's giving me this attitude and requirements to get my own money. It's not too much, but just about the amount to pay my loan and most of my bills for the month. But it's just one of many reasons that she can be angry with me. She hates the fact that I'm single and I have cats, and that I don't want children. I'm an only child and she wants grandchildren. Now, at 18 years old, I told her that I don't like to drive, and she ended up hitting me so hard that I've had problems seeing with my right eye. I also don't want her in my house with my pets that she hates, and they are all scared of her. She makes me anxious, nervous, and I was never enough for her, and she made sure that I knew it. She will be sweet to my friend face to face, and then bad-mouthing her the moment she's not in the same room. But here's the thing, if she had simply asked me to stay at her place until she found a place for herself, I would honestly say okay. I still love her, but I can't stand to physically be too close to her. I can't put up with any more of her garbage right now. I had enough in the last couple of months in my life even without her. I honestly need a break, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, I've got to be honest, that sounds like a massive mistake if you let her move in. Your mom sounds kind of like a narcissist, and she does not sound like a good person at all. Like she was super controlling when you were a kid, she made all these rules even when you were in college, and even to this day, she's always trying to like get money out of you or make you meet some weird requirements just to get money that's yours. Like that's bizarre to me, and I think whoever you sold that stuff to really made a mistake for giving your mom the money, because I really just don't think you're gonna get that back. And that really is just a net negative for you entirely. So with all things considered, I don't think you're the jerk at all for not wanting your mom to live with you in a new place of some kind. Like I really think all the controlling behavior would only come back, and I think she would just revert back to that same person she was when you were a kid. And honestly, with what you've described, I definitely think that you do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for confronting my neighbors about their loud parties? Because they are constantly so loud and they're making me lose so much sleep. But after my most recent interaction with them, they reacted very poorly towards me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Living in a close-knit apartment complex can be both a blessing and a curse. While it's great to have friendly neighbors, sometimes issues arise that test the boundaries of civility. My recent encounter with my next-door neighbors left me questioning if I had overstepped my bounds. For weeks, my neighbors had been hosting loud parties well into the early hours of the morning. The booming music and loud laughter and constant stream of guests made it impossible for me to get a good night's sleep, especially on weekdays when I had to wake up early for work. After numerous sleepless nights, I decided enough was enough. One Saturday evening, as the noise reached an unbearable level yet again, I mustered up the courage to knock on their door and address the issue. When my neighbor, let's call him Tom, answered the door, he seemed surprised to see me standing there with a frustrated expression. I calmly explained how the noise from their parties was disrupting my sleep and impacting my daily life. I requested that they keep the volume down or consider hosting their gatherings somewhere else. Now, at first, Tom seemed apologetic and promised to be more mindful of the noise in the future. However, as the weeks went by, the loud parties persisted, and it became evident that my polite request has fallen on deaf ears. Frustrated by the lack of improvement, I decided to take a more assertive approach. One evening, when the noise reached an intolerable level yet again, I marched over to their apartment and confronted Tom and his friends directly. My tone was firm as I demanded that they turn down the music and show some consideration for their neighbors. Well, Tom and his friends reacted defensively, accusing me of being uptight and ruining their fun. They argued that they had every right to enjoy themselves in their own home and dismissed my complaints as petty. As I returned to my apartment, I couldn't help but wonder if I'd been too confrontational in my approach. Had I been too quick to escalate the situation, or was I justified in standing up for my rights to peace and quiet? So am I the jerk for challenging my neighbors in the way that I did? What should I do? Let me tell you something. You are not only not the jerk, but your neighbor is absolutely a massive jerk. In most apartment complexes, there's like a designated time where you have to be quiet. Like it's typically in some kind of homeowner's agreement or a contract you have with a building that basically says after like, let's say 10 o'clock p.m., you have to keep the noise down or you will get in trouble. And that trouble usually comes from like fees or having the police called or something like that. So for Tom and his friends to be like, ooh, we have a right to have a party, that in my opinion is completely out of line because the noise they're making is not protected by some kind of right that they think they have. They're literally disturbing the peace and they need to keep it down. And in my opinion, I think you've done way more than most people would have done in this situation. You went up to him the first time and you tried to be nice. Like you really did try to say, hey, could you please just keep it down? It's way too loud and I can't get any sleep. It's bothering me. You tried to be civil and take like a nice approach of some kind just to try and get the message across. But clearly this guy doesn't care about you at all, so he just kept doing that regardless of what you said. And that, in my opinion, is like the biggest red flag you could possibly look for. You tried to be nice and say, hey, could you keep it down? And this guy still did not respect your wishes. So the fact that you went back a second time to be like, guys, I said keep it down, is not only not out of line, but it really is like the final straw before you start calling the police. Which, by the way, is a right that you absolutely have. If he's keeping you up all night every single weekend and not allowing you to get any kind of sleep, that's when I would call the police and be like, look, I've tried to warn this guy, I've got it documented that I tried to warn this guy, and he is still not getting the picture. Because at this point, it's out of your hands. So I know if I was in your shoes and I was dealing with this again in any capacity, I would not only write an email to the apartment complex itself and describe exactly the steps you've taken to quiet down your neighbor, but I would also happily call the police and be like, yeah, I got a noise complaint, my neighbors downstairs are being obnoxious and they won't stop. And then you let them take it from there, because you have every right to get a good night's sleep in your apartment complex. And if your neighbors are being disrespectful of you, then in my opinion, they absolutely deserve to get put in their place. An entitled Karen loses her mind at a clearance sale as this store that's closing down doesn't have the product for the $3 hand cream that she's desperately searching for. As a result, this entitled Karen even got kicked out as she started screaming at everybody in the store, all because she wasn't getting what she wanted. And I'm seriously still blown away by her attitude. Here's what happened. A popular cosmetic store is closing in my country. I went in yesterday after hearing of the closure to stock up on some hypoallergenic items, not knowing that they were already running their clear out sale, making everything 75% off. And to say the store was picked over was an understatement. I mean, it was nearly empty. I was lucky that they still had an inventory on exactly what I wanted. When I got to the front of a very long queue, a wild Karen appears out of nowhere, cutting in front of the line that had no less than 10 people deep. She demands that they look in the back for a rose-scented hand cream that she was unable to find on the sales floor. The woman at the counter assured her that all the inventory they had was out on the floor, and that if she was unable to find the item, then they were probably sold out of it. A normal person, by the way, would accept that a store with with mostly empty shelves probably does not have the inventory to fill those shelves. But not this Karen. She understood the words "we don't have it" to be the start of the conversation. The associate called out next, and as I approached the counter, Karen held out her arm to block me and said, "I'm not done yet." Karen is insistent that they find her item and will not take no for an answer. She continues to badger the employee, pulling out winning lines such as, "It's the only item I can use. You had it yesterday. I've been a customer for years. I mean, this is the third store I've been to." And then the employee with each statement just reiterates that what you see is what we have. Still not satisfied though, the Karen of course asked for a manager, refusing to move until the manager appeared. At this point, I decided to speak up. I said to her, "Could you please step aside while you wait so the line can progress?" But this question was met with her rudely telling me to mind my own effing business. Now, I've done my time in retail, and I live for the moment that somebody pulls out the F-bomb. And I'm sure that the associate, having had enough themselves, was also happy to ask at this point that she leave the store immediately for being rude to other customers. Unfortunately though, a Karen only has one mode, and that is to escalate. I have now committed the cardinal sin of making a reasonable request of a Karen, and have inadvertently made myself a target as well. She then turns back to me and starts yelling. She says, "See what you've done? I'm just trying to get some help here. Now they're throwing me out because you couldn't keep your mouth shut. If this was somebody in trouble, you would probably mind your own business, but no, you have to be a jerk because I'm just trying to get some service." A few of the customers in line join in calling her a Karen and noting that she was in fact the one who was unable to keep her mouth shut. Well, this only encouraged her to champion for her right to rose-scented hand cream. She then began to berate every customer who dared question her approach to the situation. Everybody is a jerk, everybody needs to shut up, and we just didn't understand customer service. Finally, the manager appears with a full bin of reaming hand cream. They had no less than 5 other varieties, but just no rose-scented ones that this idiot was looking for. The manager is offering an alternative from what limited stock they had in a futile attempt to de-escalate. However, Karens just don't understand de-escalation. I mean, this lady is already shaking mad over $3 hand cream and proceeds to call the manager stupid for not understanding rose, and then helpfully spells out the word. The manager then says, "Well, we're out of stock," noting that she had offered alternatives and that if none are suitable, then there is no further assistance that can be provided. She tucks the bin under the counter and then says to the Karen, "If there is nothing else that we can help you with today, then you need to leave before we're forced to make you leave." Finally, accepting defeat, this entitled Karen leaves the store, but not before knocking several products off a display table on her way out. Now, I use their hand cream and it's pretty good. I prefer the vanilla scented, as the rose scent smells almost as awful as this Karen's attitude. Yeah, I can't understand why anybody would act like that in public. Like, the secondhand cringe and embarrassment that I would feel if I saw this in person would be literally off the charts. How can anybody actually act like this in public and not feel any shame? Like, you're not ashamed that you're acting this way at all in public in front of other people? I just can't imagine being that far detached from reality to act like this and not feel like some kind of regret later on or like in the moment. So I think the original poster and the manager handled this really well, and I think that Karen should have been kicked out a lot sooner than that, because her behavior and the way she was acting was so uncalled for, and no one in that store deserved to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to stay at my boyfriend's hotel on my girls' trip? Because right now I am very frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. So I need to start off with a little bit of backstory just to give some context. So me and my girlfriends are planning to go to London at the end of April because one of the girls has a birthday, and for that case we decided to go to London since she always wanted to go there. We have been planning this trip since December of 2023, and I made sure to inform my boyfriend of the trip and he said it was fine. I even informed him that we might stay at a friend's place since hotels in London are a bit pricey, or we might just stay at a hotel, but it all depends on how we feel. Well, fast forward to this month, and me and my friends were on FaceTime trying to decide which hotel to reserve for the trip, and we decided on the hotel, but we were still considering staying at a friend's place still. I told my boyfriend all of this, and that's when he told me that he was also going to London with a friend of his, but he doesn't want to sleep in the same hotel room as his friend, which I fully understood, and he went ahead and asked me to reserve a hotel room for him as well, and I accepted, but I reminded him that me and the girls weren't sure if we're going to stay in a hotel, and just just like I mentioned, they are pricey, and we are traveling on a budget, so staying at a friend's place is going to save us a lot of money, but we reserved a hotel just in case of anything. I then asked him which dates he was going to London, and he mentioned the same dates as me, but I just didn't think anything of it because it was just such a coincidence. He then told me that he wants me to stay with him at his hotel during my girls' trip, since we are a couple, which I understand, but like I mentioned from the start, this is a trip that I planned with my girl since December, and it would be rude of me to tell them, hey, I'm going to stay with my boyfriend at his hotel during our trip, even though we planned everything together. But he said that during the day I could go and hang out with my friends, and then at night I could go to his hotel to sleep, and he thinks it doesn't make any sense for us as a couple to fly out in the same city and not stay at the same place. Well, I said no because he was not part of my plan since the beginning, and I can't just start changing everything just because he feels like he wants to go to London on those exact dates. So honestly, am I the jerk for turning him down? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think it's a really big red flag that your boyfriend is suddenly going on this trip with you. Like, this guy is acting like you both planned this together, and that's why you need to stay in the hotel with him, but it's like, seriously, you weren't even invited on this. It's almost like he invited himself for some like weird reason. And also, like, why would he go to this trip all of a sudden? Does he just like not trust you or something like that? And now he's trying to force you to stay in the hotel with him? Like, that's just really weird. And I know if I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want to stay at his hotel either. Like, you planned this with your girlfriends literally a year ago. You have everything plotted out and planned exactly the way you guys want to do it, and then suddenly here comes your boyfriend out of nowhere, by the way, just to tag along on a trip that you're going on with your girlfriends. Like, come on, what's going on right now? So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for refusing to stay with your boyfriend. I think under normal circumstances where you guys like planned a vacation, this would be much different and understandable if you did stay with him. But in the meantime, I find this behavior really weird because it really seems like he's trying to ruin your plans. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that she was being very obvious when trying to hide the fact that she was pregnant? Because right now she's trying to blame me for everybody finding out. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister is currently 3 months pregnant with twins, and she's already begun to develop a bump. Right now, she's only told myself, our parents, and our brother, as well as giving myself and our brother permission to tell our spouses. And we have all agreed to keep it a secret until she's ready. Well, the issue is that she's become very obvious about it, to the point where she's doing near comical things to hide it when we're around family, which has been very frequent as of late. I mean, picture the stuff that people do in sitcoms when the characters aren't pregnant but the actor is. She will cover her stomach with her purse, holding her oldest daughter in front of the bump, wearing much baggier clothes when she's typically the type to wear things that show off her figure, stuff like that. My sister's always been very fit as she is a gym rat. The bump itself doesn't even look like extra fat or anything like that, but rather it just looks like a very pronounced baby bump. If ever she has to move something from her stomach, she is very quick to hide it. So obviously many have caught on, but for the most part they all were good sports. No one ever directly asked us, but they would make hints, and I would never entertain them at all. We all gathered on Sunday for a family dinner, and my sister was holding her 2-year-old for a bit. When the little one wanted to go play, Amber then tried to cover herself with a blanket. My 30-year-old cousin then chimed in and said, "Alright, cut the dramatics. We all know what's going on." A few instantly reprimanded my cousin, while my sister turned bright red. She refused to say anything in the moment, though later quietly confirmed to our aunt, telling her to spread it around. My sister is now very upset. I agree that our cousin was obnoxious and shouldn't have said anything, but I've also tried to be supportive and comforting. However, my sister keeps saying, "I just don't know how they figured it out." And eventually, after hearing this over and over again, I finally said, "Sweetie, you really weren't trying hard. I respect why you wanted to wait, but by this point, it was quite obvious." Well, she got mad and tried to insist that it wasn't obvious. I said it absolutely was, and she didn't help matters by acting like she was in a sitcom. I stressed that our cousin was in the wrong, but she was also not quite as stealthy as she thought she was. Now, I was not saying that she should have done more to hide it, and I also don't think that she was wrong to hide it. But what I am saying is that the sentiment of, "Oh, I don't know how they figured it out," doesn't really work when she was being so obvious. Well, now she's mad at me and says I'm victim blaming, but I said I'm absolutely not. No one should have said anything. But she was being very obvious, and she really shouldn't pretend otherwise. So I really need to know if I was the jerk here, because at this point, I'm seriously not sure. No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your sister was being weird, and she's trying to claim that she's a victim of some kind. Like, no, this isn't victim blaming. What is she talking about? She's not a victim, just just because she got called out by her cousin for hiding her baby bump in such a dramatic way. Like, she was very clearly making it obvious that she was hiding something, so for her to suddenly act surprised like, oh my god, how did this happen? How did anybody figure out this mystery? Is not only hilariously naive, but also it's just really dumb, because seriously, it didn't do a good job of like not convincing people that you're pregnant. And you know what? I'm right there with everybody else. The fact that the cousin called her out at dinner was completely inappropriate. Like, that's a private conversation to be had on the side, because clearly your sister was not ready to share this with anybody. So I can understand where she's coming from in that regard, where she's probably like really embarrassed, and she probably feels really stupid for hiding it and thinking that she's hiding it in some kind of way. But like, literally, she should have known that she was being super obvious. So in my opinion, this is not your fault. You're not victim blaming because your sister is not a victim. And in my opinion, she's probably way more embarrassed than anything else. And that honestly is kind of her own fault, especially with how badly she was trying to hide the fact that she was pregnant. My entitled, stupid boss demands that we work overtime hours with literally zero work to do at the end of the day. So I decide to maliciously comply, resulting in him never asking me to stay late ever again. Here's what happened. So this happened a while back, but the memory still brings a smile to my face whenever I think about it. I used to work for a company where the boss had this habit of demanding that we stay late, even when there was absolutely no work left to be done in the office. It was one of those toxic environments where productivity was measured by hours you spent at your desk rather than the actual output of your work. One day, after wrapping up all my tasks well before the end of the day, my boss came over and told me that I needed to stay late because that's just how things are done around here. Mind you, there was literally nothing left for me to do. Now, instead of arguing or trying to reason with him, I decided to play along with his ridiculous demand for overtime pay. So I nodded, I grabbed a book I had been meaning to read, and settled back into the chair. For the next 2 hours, I sat at my desk, flipping through pages, occasionally pretending to jot down notes and looking as busy as possible. At the end of those 2 hours, my boss came by to check on me, expecting to see me toiling away at some imaginary task, but instead, he found me reading a novel. He looked at me puzzled and asked, "What are you doing?" With a straight face, I replied, "Well, you asked me to stay late, so I figured I might as well put in some overtime. This book has been on my reading list for quite a while." Needless to say, my boss was speechless. He couldn't really argue with me since he asked me to stay late and I was technically still on the clock. Well, from that day forward, he never asked me to stay late unless there was actual work that needed to be done, marking this as one of the few instances where malicious compliance was actually working at its finest. Yeah, that boss is really stupid for trying to make you stay late, because I am right there with the original poster. If there's no work to be done and you've done everything you need to do for the day, then there really is no point for you to stick around and have to work more just to make this guy happy. Like, at that point, it's just a massive waste of money for everybody involved, and it's a waste of time. Like, if they really want to pay me for staying late and actually doing work, then fantastic, let's get that done. But to make me sit there just for the sake of sitting there, and this is all probably for some secret agenda that your manager's trying to work towards, is just so cumbersome and weird, and it just doesn't help anybody in the long run. So honestly, I'm kind of sad that you got caught, because you could have gotten in some serious reading time on the clock. Because if this manager was really so stupid as to allow you to commit time theft, and with overtime hours at that, then it would have been great for you to capitalize on that for as long as possible. Today, I had my first worst day that I've ever had while working at this restaurant, and it honestly got so bad that it made me cry in front of my coworkers. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I've been a hostess at this restaurant for about 4 months now, and today was my first real serving day after 5 days of training. It was going great at first. We had some very sweet customers, but then I got sat 2 women who I could tell already were not happy. I was still able to keep up with my tables until the 2 women started complaining that their appetizer was cold. They also wanted a different one instead, and they wanted to add food. I had just gotten sat again, so it was starting to stress me out, and I began making some mistakes. Well, long story short, I forgot to shake up their margarita, so they assumed it was wrong, and that's my fault. And I forgot to tell them if they got 2 sides, one of the regular sides with their food would be replaced. So they had ordered 3 sides each, and only 2 came out. The first woman got incredibly upset and asked for a manager. She apparently talked a ton of garbage about me, so much so that my coworkers brought it up to me. As I was walking in the back, I heard my manager say, "I mean, bless her heart." And she was saying this to my coworker about me, so she must know that I'm doing badly. The main woman didn't end up tipping, which is fine, but the second one did tip about 22% and decided to write me a note. She said to me, "Don't be so stressed stressed. You will do great," which immediately made me cry. So I'm sobbing as I'm still trying to take orders out, but my coworkers were so sweet and they kept trying to help, which made it impossible for me to stop crying because I felt so bad that they had to pick up my slack. I usually am not emotional. I mean, I haven't cried in months. So of course, it's in front of the people I have to see every single day. One of them even stayed behind to help me with my first closing, which added to the guilt that I felt. I caused them all to be behind because of me, and I'm sure my other tables suffered as well because I couldn't stay calm. It wasn't the worst day ever. I mean, it definitely could have been a lot worse, but I just feel like I'm horrible at my job. I just expected my day to have gone better, and crying in front of people that I'm not close with didn't help. It wasn't even like I got a crazy amount of customers. I had 3 table sections in total, and the most amount of people that I had sat at a table was maybe 4. So there wasn't even a good reason for me to be so stressed out. But I'm honestly so embarrassed that I cried in front of my coworkers that I now seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna be real with you. If I had $1 for every time I walked away from work stressed or wanting to cry, especially when I was working in the restaurant industry, then trust me, I would be very rich. I don't care what anybody says, that line of work is incredibly stressful. Working in customer service, especially in the restaurant industry, is so stressful. There is so much that can go wrong so quickly. It is high pace, and chances are you're not going to be paid well. There are some exceptions to that rule, but honestly, the amount of work you put into that job doesn't always add up to a really good paycheck. If anything, it just adds up to you being stressed out of your mind. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would cut yourself some slack, especially when this is your first test in becoming a server. Like, you're gonna have those customers that come in and treat you like garbage, but I know whenever that happened to me, I would just remind myself that those people do not define my existence. They're just some miserable person who came in and decided to try and make you miserable, and you shouldn't let that define your work as a server, because at the end of the day, I'm sure you did just fine with every other table that you've ever served. And if you stick with it, I guarantee you these incidents will become much less in the future. My parents won't take ownership over their mistreatment of my wife, and after dealing with this for so long, I feel like I'm now at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my wife and I are in our 40s and we've been married for 20 years. We have one early teen son, and we recently moved back to my hometown about 2 miles from my parents. My wife has basically tolerated their behavior for years. They just seem to not like her at all. They interrupt when she speaks, they argue about small things that she says, they make comments about her under their breath, and manipulate to see their grandson. I've admittedly done a horrible job at standing up for her and confronting them, and instead, I just put my head in the sand. And that bad strategy is coming back to bite me now that they live nearby. Last Thanksgiving, my mom told my wife not to bother making food because apparently nobody in her family likes what she makes, insinuating that my wife is not part of the family. My wife then did not come to any holidays, and my mom left on a 2-month vacation without resolving it, and now does nothing more but deflect and excuse her behavior. Instead of apologizing, she will send my wife occasional text messages saying that we need to talk, and then she'll get mad when my wife doesn't respond. At the same time, I realized how unhappy my wife was and how I actually treat her in some of the same ways, all because of what was modeled for me. We were near divorce until I thankfully recognized this with the help of a therapist. I've changed a ton in a year and have done the hard work of reconciling with my wife, who has been very forgiving and very gracious. But my parents still treat her the same way and just can't see it. They just think she is too sensitive and the only person who has ever complained about the way we treat them, and that this is some mutual conflict that they should both apologize for. My mom even pulled out the old saying that the Bible says to forgive and forget, which is an old chestnut that she did last week. My mom asked to see our son every day via text message and wants me to spend time with her and my dad like we used to, just as if nothing is wrong. I've tried confronting them and explaining the situation many times, but I have serious doubts about their desire or capacity to change. My mom last time was just like, well, I saw a counselor once who told me to text her, and she's the one that's not texting back. I could easily explain to my mom what she's doing wrong and give her the exact script and a plan to actually apologize and repair, but that seems inauthentic and won't lead to lasting change. It's not my job to parent her, but we can't go on like this. I'm basically avoiding and ignoring them until I figure out what our relationship needs to look like, but I know that's not super mature or helpful. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, if you really want to help out your wife, you can start by standing up for her. Like, why are you tolerating any of this behavior? If you actually changed and you're like a better husband, then you would be going to your parents and saying, hey, we're not coming over till you treat my wife right. Like, why are you not putting your foot foot down to be like, no, enough is enough, you're not talking to my wife like that. If this means burning bridges with your parents, in my eyes, if I was in your shoes, it would be worth it. Like, you've been with your wife for 20 years. How does she not take priority in your life? So in my opinion, I think you're being way too lazy when it comes to defending your wife, and if I was in your shoes, I would be stepping up to say something much sooner than later. An entitled crazy driver thinks he can plow his way through a construction zone, nearly driving past me as well as everybody else sitting at a stoplight, claiming that he's trying to get away from the cartel. And I've honestly never been more afraid of an interaction with a crazy person in my life. Here's what happened. So the other day I was driving down a certain road in the Bay Area where I live, and a good portion of it is a two-way road with one lane in one direction and the other lane in the opposite direction. There are double yellow lines down the middle of the road, which they've reinforced with reflective pavement markers and rumble strips. And in case you don't know, rumble strips are the grooves in the road which make a noise if your tire passes over them, and they're there to let you know that you're drifting over the yellow lines. So the message is clear: absolutely no passing other vehicles by crossing the lines. The only time you may do so is if you're specifically directed to do so by an officer, a flagger, or a sign. And this detail will be important later on. Currently, there's a major construction project that will take multiple years to complete. They started about a year ago, and they anticipate that it will be finished in 2025. This project has necessitated blocking off one of the lanes with cones, as well as reflective delineators and signs clearly indicating the line is closed. There are temporary rumble strips in the lane letting you know that you're entering a construction site, with signs that state you need to reduce your speed to 25 miles an hour. As a side note, this road is notorious for people wanting to drive fast, so they basically need other signs to let you know that you're entering and exiting a construction zone. Now, to save trouble of having a flagger on site, they've set up a temporary traffic light with a sign nearby saying that the wait time before it turns green will be about 6 minutes. There's also a white line indicating that you're supposed to stop. When I get to the light, I often just shift into park because I know it's going to be a while. Because one of the lanes is blocked off, when you're in that lane and you reach the part that's blocked off, you may cross over, but only when the light turns green. There's a sign directing you to cross over to the other lane, and another sign directing you to go back once you're past the construction zone. Now, I'm sharing all these details because I don't see how they could possibly make it any more clear that this is a construction zone other than having cops on site in addition to construction workers. So with that bit of context out of the way, this is where our crazy driver enters the fray, and boy do they make an incredible first impression. So I was in the lane which is blocked off, and there's one car ahead of me. We get to the light, we stop, and we wait for it to turn green. Well, suddenly this guy in a Mazda SUV comes driving down the road, sees a bunch of cars stopped, and is like, no biggie, I'll just cross the double yellow lines and pass everybody. So he gets into the lane going in the opposite direction, passes all of us, and then, once he sees that we're all stopped and there's a construction zone and a traffic light, he tries to get back into the right lane. Only he can't now because the car in front of me is stopped behind the line. There is quite literally no room for him to squeeze past us and get back into the right lane without driving into the part of the lane that's blocked off. So he wedges his way in as best as he can, but now he's past the white line that you must stop behind, as well as the traffic light, so he isn't able to see when it changes. Obviously, we're all honking our horns as a means of asking, what in the world are you doing? So as a result, he gets out of his SUV. He's a middle-aged white guy, and I'm guessing probably in his late 50s. He then starts spewing all this garbage about how he's trying to get away from the cartel and how he's gonna drive like crazy in order to do so. He also mentioned some garbage about having to get to the doctor. I don't remember exactly what he said, but it went from feeling like the guy was an entitled jerk to actually being kind of scared. We were all like, dude, you're gonna like hurt someone if you do that. And he responded that he was the one who was going to get hurt due to the cartel supposedly being after him. He then asked when he could go, and we told him when the light turned green. Now remember, he's not able to see the light because he's past the line where you have to stop. The woman in front of me gets back into her car and moves back a few feet, and I do the same in order to give the guy enough room to back in enough so he can see what color the light is. Now I was very afraid that he was going to hurt somebody due to him saying that he's gonna drive like crazy in order to escape whoever supposedly was after him, not to mention him trying to get to the doctor. Eventually the light turned green and we carefully made our way onto the opposite lane past all the construction and then got back into the right lane. I was still really afraid he was going to do what he said he was gonna do, as he was going pretty fast. Luckily, he wound up behind another SUV driver who was actually going the speed limit, and thankfully he stayed in the lane and didn't pass him. And in my opinion, people like this absolutely shouldn't be on the road. Yeah, that's a crazy situation. Like the second he stepped out of his car after people were honking at him, that's like the immediate first red flag where I'm like, wait a second, this seems really sketchy. And also, like based on all the signs that you described, why on earth could this guy not like infer that, yeah, this is a construction site and I need to wait my turn at the obvious stoplight? Like seriously, there's no good excuse for this guy. But hey, maybe he really was on the run from the cartel. And if that really is true, even though I think that's a complete lie, then this guy has clearly been running with the wrong group of people. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I recently got fired from my hosting job as my managers were claiming that I was being too inconsistent. And now that I have a new job, I'm stressed out of my mind that I'm just gonna get fired again. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I worked at this place for 6 months, and the day before I got fired, I was in a heated argument with my boyfriend and was already 15 minutes late to work. It was my first time ever being late, and my one mistake was that I didn't call one of my managers to tell her that I was going to be late. I was too in my head to think about anything other than getting to work and the argument. Then I got into a car accident on my way there. I ended up being 30 minutes late to work. I was crying, I was shaking, and I was terrified because my father was behaving erratically after dropping me off. I told one of the managers what happened, and she told me to go home because I was in no condition to work and to not worry about it. Well, the next day, I received a text from my general manager that he is letting me go due to too many inconsistencies during my shifts. Mind you, I got confirmation from my coworkers that both managers were complaining on how bad I was at my job. I mean, they complained about everything all day, specifically the salary manager. She would nitpick the littlest things, even though I have little interactions with customers. And again, mind you, I also worked as a busser and would help bussers take plates in and wipe tables, and they heavily appreciated my work. I did my best to stay at the host stand, but I couldn't just watch the bussers drown by themselves, and then management, other hosts, and even servers would complain at them when they do a lot of heavy and time-consuming work. I would also pre-bus for the servers when it got busy. I also voluntarily cleaned off the floors of the front house. Now, I love cleaning and I hate seeing cheese and other crumbs on the floor, and a lot of servers thank me since it's mainly servers cleaning front of house and they leave late. I never got complaints from servers other than a rare and occasional gentle reminder that they would like to be next sat, and depending on how many tables each server had, I would go by whoever needs tables the most and try to keep it even. I think I did exceedingly over the bare minimum because the bare minimum that you have to do is stand at the host stand all day and greet customers and then sit them down. Then when the shift ends, you wipe windows and menus and clean the floor of your section. Some hosts don't even sanitize the menus, and when I'm given greasy menus, I'm absolutely horrified. I brush it off, but I was praised by servers and bussers for doing my job exceedingly well. If I'm being honest about how I seat people, it can be bad when it's packed, and we have a bit of reservations with parties of 8 or more, only because we're a very tiny restaurant, but we are a popular one. I mean, it is just messing with my head how management complains when all I do is mind my business and help everyone as best as I can. Like all I wanted was to help in any way, shape, or form that I can. Now, I was immediately offered a serving job at a sushi place across from my old work, and this is all after talking with their manager. And trust me, my anxiety is spiked so high because I don't want to go through what I went through this week. Also, I never release my shifts, and if the other hosts ever needed to be covered, then I would happily cover for them. I'm honestly so scared that management will all hate me and I'll just be fired again. I'm honestly so stressed out, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, it does not sound like you did anything wrong. If anything, it sounds like you did way more than you needed to at your previous job. Like these people clearly did not appreciate your hard work, and they very obviously took advantage of your kindness by basically allowing you to do everybody else's job. And you know what? With this new job, I would just consider it exactly that. This is a new job and a new opportunity for you to try again, because it sounds like your previous managers were absolutely incompetent and they were really rude and clearly did not appreciate you. And I think it would be in your best interest to have a clean attitude and like a fresh perspective going into this new job, because I'm sure even if these people are normal people, they will be way better than what you used to deal with. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for considering removing my sister from my life? Because after 6 years, she is still talking about her ex-boyfriend boyfriend, and how badly the breakup went between the two of them. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so 6 years ago, my younger sister went through a painful breakup with her long-term boyfriend. Since then, she's been using that breakup as a crutch to explain away every negative emotion that she experiences. And her fixation on the past has taken a toll on our relationship. My younger sister's breakup hit her hard, and I was there for her every step of the way. I listened to her vent, I wiped away her tears, and offered whatever support that I could. But instead of healing and moving on, my sister has clung to her past relationship as an excuse for her unhappiness. Nowadays, it seems like every time my sister's in a bad mood or feeling down, she just blames it on her breakup. She snaps at me over the smallest things, accusing me of not understanding her pain or reminding her too much of her ex-boyfriend. It's unfair to me, but my sister just can't seem to let go of the past. Even when things are going well in her life, my sister finds a way to tie it back to her breakup. She's become obsessed with her ex, stalking his social media profiles, and driving herself crazy with jealousy over his new relationships. But what really takes the cake is my sister's behavior towards my husband. She's convinced that he reminds her too much of her ex-boyfriend, and she's demanded that he not attend family gatherings. It's absurd and hurtful, not only to me, but to my husband as well. I am beyond angry at my sister for her selfishness and inability to move on from a breakup that literally happened 6 years ago. Her obsession is driving a wedge between us and causing unnecessary drama within our family. So honestly, am I the jerk for considering removing her from my life? Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, it has been 6 years and she is still holding on to this? My God, this is not healthy. No, you are definitely not the jerk for putting distance between you and your sister, because your sister is not being rational. Like, here's the thing, she needs to take time to fix herself first instead of taking that out on everybody else. And honestly, the final straw for me would have been her talking about your husband like that. That is unbelievably toxic, and that is not okay. Everything else for me, I can kind of excuse and be like, okay, whatever. But the fact that she targeted your husband and went after him and is seriously trying to be like, you can't come to family gatherings, you remind me of my ex-boyfriend. That's crazy talk, and that is not a rational person. And I get it. I would be insanely angry if someone said that about my significant other. Just because somebody looks like someone that you don't like doesn't mean they are that person. That's crazy talk. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your sister is so far out of line, it's not even funny. And I don't blame you for wanting to get away from her sooner than later. Am I the jerk for being unhappy at my job as I work for my older cousin, who is awful at her job and is constantly forgetting things left and right? Because right now I am seriously unhappy. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I started working for my cousin as a receptionist for her business. And for the sake of keeping this anonymous, I won't explain exactly what it is. My initial job was just to answer phones and make appointments, and my pay reflected just that. As time went on, she began piling more and more on my plate, expecting me to be able to do things that keep her business afloat, but still not giving me the power to make any decisions. This wouldn't be a huge issue if she wasn't always out of the office and ignoring my calls and messages. My cousin claims to have poor memory, and so I will have to remind her dozens of times to meet with potential clients and to work up rough drafts for jobs. People will pay a consultation fee and then have to wait weeks for her to remember to actually begin the work. Unfortunately for me, being the receptionist, I'm the one having to handle the irate clients who will no longer make deadlines. As expected, her business has slowed significantly, and she seems to believe it is my fault. She has begun leaving passive-aggressive notes to make sure I'm taking calls and petty checklists for me to mark off daily. She has also decided that since we aren't that busy, I should be deep cleaning the office daily to earn my pay. I've mentioned leaving and finding a new job since we're not that busy, and I don't have class over the summer, but she said she wants me to stay working with her and that she needs my help. My mom also said that she's family, and I can't leave her in a bind when she's struggling like this. Recently, however, instead of one page with multiple notes, she has begun to write them individually and then places some in my area and some in hers. She then will berate me if I miss a single one, especially if it involves a client or a job. I'd always ask her to please put them all on my desk, and she would make comments about me wanting her to do my job for me. So last week I had enough, and anytime she started on her tirade, instead of trying to defend myself, I'd stare blankly at her and ask if she had started this job or called this client yet, even though I knew that she hadn't. And every time it had the desired effect, and she would leave without finishing the conversation. This has apparently upset her a lot, because she then started raging to her mother, who is my aunt, who then complained to my parents about it. My dad thinks it's hilarious, but my mom and aunt think that I should just stop because I'm being petty when I know she's stressed out. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? Okay, I've got to be honest with you. I don't know why you're even still working there. I personally don't care that this is your cousin or anybody that you're related to at all. The fact that she's piling more stuff for you to do and not letting your pay reflect that, in my opinion, is so toxic and you don't need that. Not to mention the fact that she's clearly not appreciating the work you put in and she just completely mistreats you in the workspace. Also, the fact that your family's like, ooh, you can't put family in a bind. You have to help out family when they're in need. That, in my opinion, is just a cop-out for someone to continue to be awful to you. Like, you can't just use that as a license to then treat you like garbage whenever she wants. I don't care how stressed out she is. She's about to be more stressed out when you quit your job and go somewhere else. Also, she doesn't keep anything private. If she wants to sit there and pretend like she's your boss, then she should exercise some semblance of professionalism. I mean, the first thing she does whenever there's a conflict with you is go to her mom and start complaining about it. Like, that's really unprofessional and it's seriously not okay. Like, your cousin is taking advantage of you and your family is literally enabling her behavior. It's not your responsibility to keep her business afloat. That's on her. Like, she's not doing her job and you are literally picking up the slack. So I know if I was in your shoes, I would be finding a new job like tonight. I would not want to stay in a workplace like this and be expected to literally carry this business across the finish line every single day. Because honestly, that's exactly what's happening right now. And in my opinion, I don't think you deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for ditching my cousin and her family on a cruise? Also, we could avoid their obnoxious children who throw temper tantrums at the drop of a hat. Because right now, she is very angry with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my husband and I decided to take our kids on a cruise for spring break. When my cousin heard about it, her and her husband decided to book the same one with their kids. So essentially, they kind of crashed our trip. We were very hesitant to go with them, but we couldn't exactly forbid them from going either. My cousins and I are actually super close. I mean, we grew up like sisters, and I try very hard to stay close with them. The issue is that our kids are very badly behaved. My kids can enjoy them in small doses, as can we, but trying to do more than a few hours at a time with them is difficult. She has a 9-year-old and a 6-year-old and a toddler. They throw long and loud tantrums until they do get their way. They also need 24/7 entertainment or they go crazy. If they're bored for even a minute, they start crying and complaining, and my cousin and her husband have to stop what they're doing and start entertaining them just to stop the tantrum. And obviously, this is 100% on the parents. We've never done a trip together like this, and we weren't sure how her kids could handle it, but we agreed to sit with them for dinner and do the same shows as them and all this other stuff. Now, if you've never been on a cruise, they seat you at the same table every night with the same people. Well, this proved to be a mistake after the first night. They were terrible at dinner. They drew on the walls with their crayons. They purposefully crumbled bread to make a mess. They used their knives to cut up straws and other things. They also kept running around and disturbing other tables. Their parents, of course, did nothing to stop them and instead just let them do whatever they want. Eventually, they got tired of that and started crying and screaming that they were bored and they wanted to go to the shops. They allowed them to throw a 5-minute screaming tantrum before their dad finally took them to the shops to buy some toys that they wanted. Then after dinner, we went to a show and they didn't enjoy the show and also whined loudly that they were bored. It was bad enough that we were asked to leave the show. Technically, my husband and I could have stayed with our kids, but we were just too embarrassed. My kids were upset and said they ruined the show for them. So my husband and I made the decision to ask for a different table for the rest of the trip and chose different activities to do. I told my cousin that we decided it would be best to separate at dinner and not do all activities together, but we could still hang out at the pool together and do a few activities together as well. Now, when I said that, she was pretty upset, and she said her kids got their feelings hurt that we abandoned them and that they weren't going to enjoy their trip anymore, being separated from their cousins, and she wouldn't even talk to us for the rest of the trip. We are back home now, and I got some calls from my grandparents asking why we ditched her and how we could do that to them. My sister said that we should have known this was going to happen and set the expectation for separate things ahead of time instead of dropping it on them during the cruise. So honestly, am I the jerk here? Because I seriously am not sure what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. Like, your cousin and her husband are terrible parents because they clearly enable this behavior left and right. Like, that is so obnoxious, it's not even funny. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Like, of course you plan to do all these these things with them, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, maybe they'll be good on this trip. Maybe because you're on a cruise and it's outside of their normal element, these spoiled kids won't act like absolute nightmares and ruin the trip for everybody. So that's why you made all these plans together. But clearly, that just isn't the case. Like, the parents just let these kids run around at dinner, and then they allow them to make all that noise during a show. Like, if I was in your shoes, I would be cutting ties with them during the cruise altogether. Not to mention the fact that they crashed your trip. I mean, if anything, this is just a lesson to anybody listening that if you have plans and you plan on going on a vacation, just keep a lid on it until like the day before or something like that. That way, people you don't want to be there can't show up all of a sudden. And you know what? The fact that your cousin's like, wow, you should have set expectations for us. You did this all of a sudden during the cruise and now we had to drop all our plans. But like, seriously, that argument goes the other way as well. Why would you drop your kids all of a sudden in this environment if you knew that they were going to misbehave? So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because these people have no right to try and ruin your vacation. My entitled in-laws are demanding that we give up our home so that my sister-in-law and her family can move in after she got a divorce. And now, after we told them that we're not going to do that, they've started calling us greedy and selfish, claiming that we don't care about the kids and that we're going to be the reason that they end up homeless. And right now, I feel like I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened 2 nights ago and I'm still feeling some type of way about it. For some background, my husband has a younger sister. This sister-in-law is currently going through a divorce with 4 children, and my husband and I also have 4 children. My husband and I live in a very quiet country back road in our own little town, us and his family being the only residents on the road. So, both his sisters and their families and his parents live within walking distance of our house. My husband and I have been married for 7 years and have 4 young children. My husband bought the land that we live on from his parents when he was 18 years old, and when we got married, we built a house on it. We designed our house with a big family in mind and designed it to be our forever home. And trust me when I say this, there has never been a thought to move or look elsewhere. Now, my sister-in-law is going through a divorce, and she is struggling to say the least. She was in a very toxic relationship with her ex, with her contributing just as much as he was, and he was the one who filed for divorce and moved out, leaving the 4 kids with her. Well, my mother-in-law called my husband 2 nights ago and asked if we could come over for a chat. We get there and my in-laws and sister-in-law are sitting on the couch as if they were staging some kind of intervention. I mean, it was just really strange. My mother-in-law didn't beat around the bush at all. She explained how my sister-in-law's ex was getting the house in the divorce and they would be homeless within a month if we didn't give her our home. Now, when she said this, it honestly took me a second to comprehend what was even said, because this was so far out of left field. But my husband didn't even need that second. He looked them dead in the eyes and said no. My in-laws started telling us things like, you guys don't need all that house. You guys can move into one of the new neighborhoods in town. I mean, you guys can just build a new house, right? And I seriously could not believe what I was hearing. I offered to open up our playroom and guest room to them until they could find somewhere to live. I mean, we have an air mattress and the guest room has a full bath, but that was just not good enough to them apparently. So that's when we got up and we just straight up left. As we were leaving, they began yelling after us, saying that we don't care about the children, how family helps family, and that we're being greedy and selfish. And I've gotta say, I'm honestly so proud of how we reacted, because my first instinct was to go off and say some hurtful things. But instead, we just went home to our house. We love my sister-in-law's kids, and obviously we do not want them to be homeless, but they don't need my house at the expense of my own children and family. I don't see why my sister-in-law's family deserves my home. I mean, what about my kids? Now the in-laws are calling and texting, saying that we don't care about the kids, that we are selfish and greedy, and that we're making her homeless. And I'm wondering if maybe we were too quick to say no. So honestly, are we the jerks in this situation? What should we do? Wow, your in-laws and your sister-in-law are being incredibly entitled. They're seriously gonna look at you and be like, can you just move out, please? We need your home more than you do. And it's like, lady, what are you talking about? I have a family of my own. I've got kids of my own. Like, seriously, why on earth should you give up your home just because your mother-in-law is demanding it? Why can't they give up their home? Like, why is this suddenly on your shoulders? And also, the fact that they're trying to frame this as if you're the reason they're gonna be homeless is so disgusting. You didn't cause them to lose the house. Their ex did that. If they want to be mad at anybody, be mad at them. Like, you didn't do a single thing in this scenario. So honestly, the way they're acting is insane, and you do not deserve this in the slightest, because I am sure there are some kind of options available in the world or the community that you're in that would allow them to find a place to live and move on with their lives. Because for them to just demand your house outright, in my opinion, is completely crazy. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my sister that if she doesn't like the living conditions of my place, then she should just go ahead and leave? Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, she's technically my stepsister, but we're basically sisters and I treat her like one. I'm a 29-year-old female and I live on a tiny farm off the grid in the middle of nowhere. The only livable building on the farm is a small trailer and there's no power. I mean, I have to use a generator just to do anything. On top of that, there is no plumbing. We have 2 kids, an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and their father isn't in the picture and won't be until the end of 2032. I'm fine with the lack of basic necessities as I live off the land and I don't need much in general. My kids are homeschooled and I plan to do so until middle school at least. Recently, my 33-year-old stepsister got divorced and evicted from her ex's place. She has 3 kids, 2 5-year-olds and a 3-year-old. She had nowhere to go, so I invited her to live with me. Not even a week had passed, and she started complaining about having to use the outhouse, as well as a lack of water, and the fact that the drinkable water had to be carried from another well in buckets. She also complained that we live far away from any civilization, with the nearest hospital being about 20 miles away, and if anything happens, there is a chance that we won't be able to get there on time. Her biggest complaint, though, was that I asked her to help around the farm with small chores, and that I asked one of her 5-year-olds to bring some water from the well, and I gave them a small bucket. I see nothing wrong with children doing age-appropriate tasks around the farm, and I was raised the same way until I was 12. So I told her that if she's dissatisfied with the way I live, then she is free to leave. I'm not locking her up to be my slave around the farm. I provided her with free housing and food. Well, she said that I'm trying to use her children for child labor and that I'm endangering her life. We had a nasty verbal fight that ended up with us exchanging some really unsavory words, and now she is still sulking. And right now, I'm wondering if I'm the jerk, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't think you're in the wrong here, and I really think your stepsister was kind of out of line. Like seriously, it's just a bucket, and it's not like you're asking for some weird child labor on the farm. You're literally just asking people to pull their weight. Like that is completely understandable. So for your stepsister to freak out like that is so weird. Like you're giving her free housing. Why would she not expect to have to do something just to kind of like make up for getting free housing altogether? And it's not like you're asking that much. Like this really is minor in the long run. And you know what? You're absolutely right as well. If she doesn't like it here, then she can leave. Because truly, no one is forcing her to live there. Am I the jerk for telling my dad that I'm moving out and that I won't be babysitting this summer or any time after that? Because right now, he and his wife are very upset. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been forced to babysit for my dad and his wife for 5 years for the last 4 summers. The kids are my dad's stepkids who are currently 7, 6, and 5 years old. And no, the kids are 100% not my dad's kids. And trust me, I'm positive they're not his kids either. It doesn't really matter anyways, but I wanted to put that out here because I know the ages would make it appear like at least one could be, but trust me, it's not. My dad was never a very good dad to me. When I was a kid, he was really absent from our house, and he left raising me to my mom and would show up when others were around to make it look good. But he never got involved or cared about me or my life. And actually, the one time I was always sure to see him was on his birthday when he got mom to cook his favorite meal and open up gifts. He never failed to show up when it was about him. My mom got sick when I was 8 years old, and my dad bailed and he filed for divorce. He left me to deal with my dying mom, and unfortunately for her, the divorce didn't go through before she passed, so he was still her husband. He wasn't emotionally present for me then or physically. He would just dump me on a babysitter until I was 11 years old, and then I was seen as old enough to be left alone. When I was 12 years old, he moved in his wife who was still pregnant at the time, and they weren't even married then. They got married when her youngest was about 5 months old, and they told me I was going to level up and be a good big sister to her kids so that they could live their own lives and the kids would have someone to look up to. Then came the forced babysitting during the summer, all summer long. I always tried to find ways out of it, but felt like I had no options, at least no realistic ones. Now, my dad's wife is kind of better than my dad. She isn't directly involved or caring to her kids, but she will often bark at me for not being more sweet to her kids and saying how sad her kids look when I don't interact with them. It's more than what my dad would do, but she's not exactly getting involved with her own kids either. I've been planning for for over a year to get out. I turn 18 in May and I graduate a couple of weeks later. Most likely I will go stay with friends on my 18th birthday and I will totally be gone and never return. I won't babysit. And I know they expected that to happen, and I don't know that they would actually pay for someone else, or if they'd maybe leave the kids without someone watching them. So I decided to tell my dad that I won't be babysitting this summer or at all. In my head, at least if he cares just a little bit, he might just get someone else in. Well, my dad told me that I've been the most consistent person in the kids' lives and that I'm a jerk for dismissing them like that. He told me that I should be staying and doing what he and his wife want because they put a roof over my head for so long now. He told me I'm going to cost him money by doing this. His wife then started yelling at me for leaving her kids behind and how sad they will be. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your dad and his wife are literally just using you for their own benefit. They only see you as a free babysitter over the summer because not only would they never pay you, but you'll never get anything out of watching those kids in the slightest. Like, do they not see how neglectful they are as parents? I mean, this guy's trying to claim that you're the most consistent person in these kids' lives, but like, shouldn't that be him and his wife? Why should you, as the stepsister, step in and be like the parent in this situation? That doesn't make any sense, and it just sounds like they're being very lazy. And you can almost see the reasons laid out in that last paragraph. He wants you to stick around because you're free labor, and then when you say no, they just guilt trip you just like the wife is doing. And literally, the way that he treated you growing up is just so neglectful. He didn't care about you or your mom in the slightest. So I don't blame you for wanting to move out. These people sound awful and you definitely don't deserve this. So in my opinion, you are absolutely not the jerk. Two obnoxious kids come into my store demanding every single item they see within reach. And I've honestly never seen kids be more spoiled in my life. Here's what happened. So I worked at Claire's for 8 months. It was a pretty miserable job for many reasons. One of them being that I had to deal with children who made my life a living nightmare, all because mommy and daddy wouldn't buy them the eyeshadow palette shaped like a star. What often made it worse was kids and parents would often get into full-blown screaming matches, and there really is nothing less fun or more awkward than witnessing that. And the situation I'm going to tell you about is the worst case that I've ever been involved in. And honestly, thinking about this one makes me cringe. One day I'm at work and this family comes in. There's a mom, a grandma, a girl who couldn't be more than 6 years old, and a boy who couldn't be more than 5. The mom came in to ask about a problem they had after getting the girl's ears pierced. They had been a little swollen after they had taken the piercings out, and told them that it'd be a good idea to maybe clean them a little more and have her wear the precious metal earrings, which are earrings made of less crappy metal. They go to look at the earrings, and I let them know about our buy 3 get 3 deal on jewelry and hair accessories. Now, our precious metal earrings are expensive, $12 for a pair and $36 for a pack of 3. I usually feel bad telling people that they need to get the expensive ones, so I also usually pointed out the clearance ones. I walked over to the clearance ones and grabbed the 3 precious metal earrings that I saw there. I brought them over to the girl and I showed them to her, and she literally recoiled because she thought they were ugly. I have never seen a kid that age look that judgmental in my life. The family lingers into the regular earrings, and the girl starts begging for a pair of flamingo earrings. She said she needed them because she was dressing like a flamingo for Halloween. Now, get ready for these kids to say the word need a lot, because trust me, that's exactly what they do. Now, the mom wants to get enough things to get the discount, and she actually ended up getting enough items to get it more than once. The girl then gravitated to a tiara and said that she needed it because, and I quote here, "I need it because I can't be a princess without a tiara." This family ended up being in there for maybe about 20 minutes, and it honestly felt a lot longer. The entire time, both kids were hopping around the store, pointing at practically everything and saying, "I need this." Some of it was kind of weird too. We had these Harry Potter minifigure blind bags that quite a few kids wanted, even kids who were a few years too young to read Harry Potter, just because one of the options was a cute orange tabby cat that they wanted. That was clearly one of the things that these kids needed. They spent the better part of the most uncomfortable 20 minutes of my life yelling at their mom and grandma and wailing every single time they said no to anything. And the mom was getting more pissed off by the minute, but she was still really determined to stay in the store long enough to get things to get that discount. Eventually, the mom is yelling at the kids are still yelling, and the grandma is the only one not yelling, but she still looks stressed out of her mind. And I seriously can't emphasize this enough. It is really awkward to watch parents angrily scolding or arguing with their kids, especially when you're at work and you have to keep on the happy, polite retail worker face and basically act like you're not seeing anything. The mom even started telling the grandma to pick out something for herself off because she did not want to buy those kids a single thing. Now, I have never been so happy to see a customer check out in my life. As the mom is checking out, she sees that the total is really high and asks to remove a few things, and I'm so glad the kids didn't witness that. Claire's brings out the worst in children, and the buy 3 get 3 brings out the worst in the parents. Yeah, I can see that being very frustrating to deal with. There's no way on earth I could work that kind of job because I would not have that kind of patience to act like nothing's happening. I would absolutely want to be that guy to be like, wait a second, what's happening here? Why are we all screaming and yelling over earrings? Or even making some kind of remark about the kids asking for everything. Like, I don't know about you, but I would not be able to keep my mouth shut in that situation. So truly good for the original poster for keeping their cool, because that sounded incredibly obnoxious. Am I the jerk for telling my stepdad that he's inserting himself too much into my engagement? Because right now he feels very upset that I told him off, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female and I got engaged 4 months ago to my fiance Chris. Chris is not his real name. Chris was confronted by my stepdad after we announced our engagement. My stepdad was upset that Chris didn't ask for my hand in marriage or my stepdad's blessing. He told Chris I'm his only little girl and it would be the most respectful thing to both of us to ask his permission and his blessing. Well, Chris told him that it's an outdated concept, and if we were to do the whole blessing thing, we would visit my dad's grave to ask. My stepdad told him that he's the dad he would ask. He's the father of the bride and he's the future father-in-law. Well, Chris didn't tell me about this right away because he said he had hoped it would blow over and he didn't want me to feel bad about it or for me to deal with stress regarding my stepdad. Last month, my stepdad asked me why I hadn't approached him for money for the wedding and why he wasn't asked directly to give me away and perform the father-daughter dance. He told me he was starting to feel very overlooked as the father of the bride, and he was not okay with that. He told me this is very big for him, as I'm the only girl that he has that's getting married and all that other stuff. Now, for a bit of background, my dad passed away when I was 6 years old, and my mom married my stepdad when I was about 10 years old. I knew him for just shy of a year when he and my mom got married. I was my mom and dad's only child, and my stepdad brought 3 sons into the marriage, and he and my mom have 3 more sons together. I respect that my stepdad wanted to be my dad and committed to being a dad to me, but he is very old-fashioned and he is not my dad. I don't really love him. I find him overbearing and misogynistic at the best of times, and he did not like that I wanted to go to college for game design and development. He thought that was very masculine, and also never liked me playing video games in the first place. He was very into the idea of a daughter though, and often tried to take me to father-daughter balls that he would look up. I actually gave him the money back that he saved me for college and spent my dad's money because I wasn't going to let him dictate my future, and my dad did support me. He wrote a letter saying he hoped I followed my dreams of making games, and I only read that when I gained access to the money that he left me. I told my stepdad that he wasn't walking me down the aisle or performing any kind of father-daughter dance with me. I told him I wasn't looking for his money, and he told me that's what the father of the bride does and that he wants to do it. He told me it's tradition, but I said it was not traditional and that I was not having a traditional wedding. A few days after, we rehashed the same stuff. I found out about his confronting Chris then, and I went to my stepdad and told him he had no right. But he argued as my dad, he has every right. I told him though that he's not my dad and he's inserting himself way too much and cannot make demands for my wedding or engagement. He told me to say that to him after almost 20 years is disgusting, and he has been my dad far longer than my donor ever was. And when I say donor, he's referring to my father who's passed away. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Your dad is being very obnoxious and very rude. He's inserting himself into the middle of you getting married, and he's trying to make these weird demands that you just don't want to deal with. Like, I understand him wanting to be involved and be this father figure in your life, but it seems like he's almost like trying to force it. Like he's almost trying to make you be the daughter to his father. But like, that's not how this works. He can't just make you his daughter, and he also can't force you to call him your dad. And speaking of which, for him to call your dad who passed away as your donor, that is really disgusting and really cruel. It's not fair for him to act like that, and you really do not deserve that. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. My coworkers intentionally got me in trouble with management, and now my manager is threatening to take me off the schedule, even though I was just trying to be a team player. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I started at this restaurant a few months ago, and it initially took some getting used to, as I haven't served in many years. My coworkers were really helpful in the beginning, but with time started to get annoyed with me because I would ask questions. I was supposed to get 3 manager training shifts when I started, which never happened, so my training ended up falling on whoever I was working with that night. I have definitely gotten a handle on the job since then, but some of that tension towards me has still lingered. I try really hard to be friends with my coworkers, and it's important to me to feel like we are a team, despite the competitiveness of serving. But I feel like people are kind of two-faced, and it's really hard to get a read on people. Sometimes I want to keep my head down and do my own thing, but my manager pointed this out to me and asked me to interact with everyone more. Anyways, with that said, lately it's been so slow a lot of the times, meaning that one server will go home early so that the other can make whatever money they can with the few tables that come in. In the winter, that was acceptable, but recently my manager has been cracking down on this. The thing is, my coworkers encourage me to leave early almost every single shift, especially when it's slow, so I end up feeling awkward if I don't. My manager found out that I left early the other day and basically sent me a text ready to take me off the schedule and saying I don't act like I want to be there. Now, I really do want to keep this job, and I feel bad for letting him down. We are going to sit down next week and talk it over, but I need to know if anyone has any advice or a similar experience working in restaurants. It feels very dog eat dog, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, why on earth would you leave early all because your coworkers are telling you to do that? Like, it really seems like your coworkers are just trying to get you in trouble with management, and you should have not listened to anything they said to you. Like, you do realize they did that on purpose, right? They clearly don't like you because you were new and asking them questions, and now it's pretty clear to me at least that they're trying to get rid of you in some kind of way. And here's the other thing that I really think you need to figure out. I think you need to realize that just because someone's a coworker doesn't mean that they're your friend, especially based on what you've described, because these people do not sound like good people at all. So in my opinion, I think it's time to listen to your management and follow exactly what they want you to do, because leaving early just because your coworkers say that you can do it, in my opinion, is a surefire way just to get fired. An entitled Karen calls the cops on me at my house, claiming that I had stole her mail. She even went as far as try to get me in trouble with my work, making some horribly outlandish claims about what I did to her property. And I'm honestly so frustrated dealing with this nightmare of a neighbor that I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have this Karen who owns the place behind mine on a private drive. A couple months ago, she threw a Halloween party and had family members driving off-road vehicles all night in circles for a haunted trail. Part of it came onto my property near my house and was keeping me awake. So I walked out in my pajama pants and kindly asked the guy driving to stay on their side of the line. Thankfully, he stopped and it was all good. Well, at least I thought it was. A few weeks later, I got a package accidentally delivered to my house meant for the neighbor. It was one of those soft Amazon packages, so there was definitely nothing breakable in it. It was something like slippers or maybe a coat. So I went to that neighbor's house and I tossed it towards her door. Well, apparently after this, she called my work, demanded to talk to my boss, and demanded that I be reprimanded. She said that I confronted her cousin and yelled at him to stop riding his off-road vehicle, and that I callously threw her package at her house, which all of this was just clear exaggerations of what actually happened. My boss explained that my work has nothing to do with the dispute between neighbors, but she still wanted him to talk to me about it. My boss called me into his office and told me what happened, and it was so embarrassing. Plus, I work for a notable firm in the area that doesn't appreciate negative PR. I decided not to make things worse and I didn't confront her, and it was so frustrating seeing her smugly drive by every single day. Fast forward 4 months, and I got home from work to find packages on my deck. I brought them inside and I discovered one of them was addressed to the neighbor. So I thought to myself, oh boy, here we go again. I decided to go for my evening walk as planned and figured I'd try to be the bigger man and return the package when I got back. And trust me, the temptation to be petty was immense, admittedly. When I came back from my walk, I found the neighbor and her older daughter on my deck. And when I got there, she asked me if I had her package. I went inside and I grabbed it and then I handed it to her. I told her I did not appreciate what she did by calling my boss and lying about the details. Well, that went about as well as you'd think it did, because she then accused me of stealing her package and told me it's a federal offense to mess with her mail. I told her that I had planned to give her the package, but she was stuck on how it was inside my house. She then asked me if I planned on throwing it like I did the last one, and I told her if anything was broken, I would gladly pay for it. Then she said the thing that I honestly did not want to hear. She asked if I wanted her to call my boss again. Well, my heart sank, and I told her to do whatever she wanted. She started to waddle away, and I started going back into my house. Then I heard her yelling at me again. She turned around and started screaming about how I took her mail. I turned away from my door and I told her to leave and that she was trespassing, but she literally would not leave. I told her at least 10 times to just go, but she kept yelling about calling my boss and telling me that she had cameras. Well, so do I. I pointed at them and then she finally left. And then, wouldn't you guess it, the cops showed up. She is the main reason I put up cameras because of other stunts that she's pulled, and thank God that I have them. I showed the cops the footage and they just laughed. I guess she reported that I stole her package and that I had threatened her somehow. I showed the cops the video of the UPS guy dropping off the package, as well as me bringing the package inside without looking at it. As a result, she has now been officially trespassed and can't come onto my property anymore. But trust me, this gets better. She actually called my boss and told him the same lies that she told the cops. So I sent him the video and he said that he understands. But it's still such a garbage situation to deal with, and I honestly hope I don't have to deal with these people ever again. Yeah, I can't stand people like this who clearly lie to the police and then turn around and act like they're the victim somehow of stuff that they're actively doing. That's really petty, it's really annoying, and it's super dishonest. But thankfully she got trespassed from your property, so hopefully you never have to deal with that lady ever again, because her attitude and demeanor is completely inappropriate, and you do not deserve to live like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I kick out my bridesmaid simply because she kicked me out of her bridesmaid's party when she got married? Because right now I'm at a crossroads and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, so here's a quick timeline just for clarification. In November of 2021, my friend, who we will call Taylor, that's not her real name, got engaged and asked me to be a bridesmaid. In April of 2022, I got engaged and I asked Taylor to be my bridesmaid. In June of 2022, I find out I'm pregnant and I tell my friends, including Taylor. And in August of 2022, she asked me not to be her bridesmaid anymore, and her wedding was in October. She claims she decided not to include me anymore because she didn't want to put any extra stress on me with bridesmaid responsibilities. Now, I was disappointed, but appreciated that she was looking out for my health. It turns out it was all a lie, and that while she was at a party with friends, the topic of my pregnancy came up, and she said what she really thinks about all of it. Taylor said several times how irresponsible and thoughtless I was for getting pregnant. It was all unplanned, but my fiance and I had been dating for 6 years and living together for 2. She also said how annoyed she was that she had to replace me, as a bump would ruin photos and make the day about me, as people would probably talk to me about my baby. After finding out that Taylor lied to me, I was extremely hurt. Our mutual friends had no reason to lie, and multiple people told me the same story on different occasions, so I know it's all true. I completely understand Taylor wanting to not be overshadowed in her eyes, but it's not like I planned it around her wedding. I also gave her the opportunity to kick me out before by asking her at the same time I announced my pregnancy if I should still buy the dress, and she said, "Of course, you're still in the wedding." By the time she had told me I'm not a bridesmaid months afterwards, I had already paid for part of the bachelorette party. I had bought and altered my dress and planned out all mine and my fiance's travel and lodging for the wedding, as it was across the country. My pregnancy became complicated, so my fiance and I decided to not risk it and miss the wedding. We told Taylor by the RSVP date, and she understood and even sounded relieved. I had my daughter right on time, and Taylor's wedding was beautiful from the pictures that I saw. I'm happy for her, but now I don't know what to do for my wedding. We pushed back our date to prepare and save up more money, so I'm not getting married until this November, but now that I'm back to planning, I'm not sure how I feel about her being in it. She has never admitted to her lie, but has no idea that I know about it, and our friendship has stayed good otherwise. But she still talks about people behind their backs, especially when she's drunk, but then claims they're best friends and that she loves everything about them. So I don't know what all she says about me. I can't shake the gross feeling that I get when she asks me about my child or says how excited she is for my wedding, knowing she went behind my back and said such mean things about me. So honestly, would I be the jerk if I kick out my bridesmaid all because she did the same thing to me? What should I do? Honestly, I'm kind of surprised you kept a relationship with her in the first place. Like, this lady does not sound like a good friend, and it does not sound like someone I would want in my wedding if I was in your shoes. So to me, it's not really a question of, oh, should I invite them to my wedding to be a bridesmaid? In my opinion, it's more of a question of like, well, should I even be friends with them in the first place? Because she clearly had selfish intentions as to why she kicked you out of her bridesmaid party, and in my opinion, I just can't imagine having her still in yours after all the things she said to you. So if you do decide to go through through with it, I don't think you'd be the jerk in the slightest. I think you have every right to have whoever you want in your bridesmaid party. And in my opinion, I just don't think that would include someone who's going to talk to you in such a way. Am I the jerk for giving my friend the silent treatment after he turned down my invitation to be my groomsman? Here's what happened. So my fiance and I are getting married in Mexico, and the very moment we decided on a destination wedding at an all-inclusive resort, we knew we had to inform the most important people in our lives so that they had time to prepare. We informed our family and closest friends first and quickly began forming our wedding party. I invited one of my closest, oldest, and best friends to be my groomsman, and had also considered asking him to be my best man. We have been great friends since high school, we played and coached football together, and I was a groomsman in his wedding. Even though I moved to a different state for work, we still made a great effort to call and get together in person whenever we could. It never crossed my mind that he might say no to my invitation. When I first asked if he would do me the honor of being my groomsman, he hesitantly said yes. I excitedly bought personalized items for all my groomsmen, including him. A month or two later, he texted me to tell me that he changed his mind and didn't want to come to my wedding. The reason was that it was in Mexico, and if something happened to him, he would leave his kids without a father. Now, when he said that, I was floored. It wasn't a cost-related problem. It wasn't a situation where he's like, oh, I have no one to watch my kids while I'm gone. It wasn't even a time off work problem. It was just him saying that he might get taken out while in Mexico. Well, I haven't talked to him since, and he hasn't reached out to me either. So am I the jerk for giving him the silent treatment? What should I do? Yeah, I've got to be honest, it's kind of weird that you're giving him the silent treatment for not coming to your wedding. Like, for starters, you're asking him to come out of the country just to go to your wedding, and some people are simply uncomfortable with that. So the fact that you would give him the silent treatment all because he's not coming to your wedding is really immature in my opinion. Sure, he's one of your oldest and closest friends, but you're asking him to go outside the country to go to a wedding. Like, I know me personally, I probably would not attend because I probably would not be comfortable with it. Also, this is not some kind of like court summons, like he doesn't have to go if he doesn't want to. So in my opinion, I think you're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be, and I think you need to realize that he's not obligated to go to your wedding if he doesn't want to go. My entitled management is forcing us back to the office, refusing to allow us to work remotely, and with it, they're requiring us to have a brand new dress code. So I decide to maliciously comply just to shake up their expectations of what's allowed. Here's what happened. I work in IT for a manufacturer that's a global organization with about 30,000 employees globally. Our really good CIO, who was technical enough to get it and smart enough to realize that a global organization needs global people from all areas with wide ranges of skills, suddenly retired abruptly. He led us very well through the uncharted COVID waters, and we did really well. His replacement was named and was a high-level financial guy about 2 years ago. Many of us knew what this meant, as there are some very accurate memes about finance guys destroying IT. Just around his 1-year anniversary, he announced that we must return to the office and use the same emotional appeals about collaboration and missing something with remote work, just like all the other brain-dead executives around the globe. After a couple of weeks of enforced 2 core days a week for only the office that he worked at and other corporate offices in the neighboring city, we were then set for mergers and acquisitions with multiple key offices. So after a couple of weeks of return to office, an email was sent about dress code and clean jeans, that it would be best to wear company-branded shirts and polos. After all, IT is on the same floor as the executives, and he's not going to look good bending the knee if us underlings are dressed in t-shirts. Comments were made on the side by middle management on how this would reflect poorly on reviews and merits. So that's when we decided to maliciously comply. I decided to purchase a 4-pack of high-visibility polo shirts, bright yellow, bright orange, teal green, and gray, each with reflective striping. We are, after all, a manufacturer, and our corporate office is attached to a manufacturing building where high visibility is required, along with hard hats, hearing protection, and safety boots. I mean, we take our safety seriously, and I applaud that after all, right? Well, today my manager let me know that both the CIO and the senior director that I report to, after a few layers of yes people, have commented that my shirts are not liked. My manager said that it's totally up to me what I do, but he strongly recommends picking my battles and not wearing those shirts any longer. So I'm leaving with this. I'm writing up an ethics complaint, but what should I wear for the next week's core days? I'm thinking about showing up in my suit and nod to those 2 cowards who can't even say something to me directly. But regardless, I'm really sick of the way these guys act. Honestly, I think that's a really funny way to get back at this company for making you wear stuff that you definitely don't need to wear at work. Like, seriously, that's just like super annoying to be like, ooh, we need a dress code. It's like, dude, I work in IT. It's not that important. So truly good for you for pushing the envelope, because the way your management is acting is honestly a little bit obnoxious. Am I the jerk for for refusing to talk to my parents until they give me an honest answer about my mom and her family, because right now they're dodging all of the issues that I'm bringing up, and it's really starting to frustrate me, and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I live with my parents and my younger siblings, and we were very close until recently. My first mom died when I was 6 days old. She got really sick in the late stages of her pregnancy with me, and she never recovered from it. A few days later, my dad packed up and moved with me because he couldn't stay where they were planning a life together. This left her family behind. She has parents, siblings, nieces and nephews, aunts, uncles, and cousins who were always a very tight-knit family. My dad met my adoptive mom when I was 7 months old. Out of insecurity on my mom's part and a desire to forget the future he planned with my mom, contact between my biological maternal side was limited to once a year. My mom didn't want to share the role of being a mom. She knew that my family would want to talk about my mom around me and would want me to know that she existed, but she didn't want to feel like she was always less of a true mom. And my dad has just never gotten over the pain of losing my mom, and he buries the past and her just to cope. I don't fully understand why they couldn't put me first in that decision, but they just didn't do it. My childhood was mostly happy. It had some negatives like wishing I knew my family better or that I had known my mom, but also I wasn't accepted by my adopted mom's family, so that was always really hard to deal with. Then I had more contact with my family. It started with texting and calling and Zoom calls regularly, and then convincing my dad to let me go for a weekend here and there. He and my mom did not like it, and the decision confused my siblings too. I have loved getting to know them, and they have loved getting to know me. Grandparents' rights weren't an option for them because of that one visit every single year, so seeing me more is huge for them. My parents really started to let me know how much they disliked all this extra contact. My dad said it's painful, and my mom told me that she feels less important because I'm chasing a relationship that ties to a mom I don't remember. A couple of weeks ago, they told me I should think of them and my mom's feelings, but I asked them how they would feel if they were in my mom's shoes or her family's shoes, if they passed away while their child was just a baby and they were erased by their spouse and his new spouse. I mean, would they be okay with that? And would they be okay if my siblings or I passed away with a newborn and they never got to be a real part of their lives? Well, when I asked that, they refused to answer, and I told them that I didn't want to speak to them until they gave me an answer because they were being totally unfair to me. Well, my parents are angry about this, and my siblings asked me why I had to make this such a big deal. So I posed the same question that I asked my parents, and it helped them to understand where I'm coming from, but my parents don't like my no talking thing. But literally all they want to do is talk about this topic, but then also never give me a straight answer. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I think it's really weird that your dad and your adoptive mom are refusing to allow you to have contact with your other family members. Like, I totally understand that they're like mourning the loss of this mom, but it really seems like they've gone about this all wrong. For starters, it really doesn't seem like he's gotten over this loss in the slightest. Like, he even went as far as moving away and never talking to that side of his family ever again as some kind of solution to get over this pain. Not to mention the fact that your adoptive mom's family just doesn't do anything to make you feel welcome. That is really toxic in my opinion, and honestly, I don't think that's okay at all. And it also really does make sense why you would be like, okay, well, if these people don't like me, let's see if these people on my mom's side have anything good they want to say to me. And also, the fact that your adoptive mom's family would be like, no, we're gonna reject you. Like, that is such an awful thing to do, it's not even funny. There's literally no good reason for that, and they seriously should be ashamed of themselves. So in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for pressing them about this. This is a part of your history that you do want to know about. These are people that actually are related to you, that they're denying you for literally no good reason. And that seriously just doesn't make any sense to me. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way that you do. Am I the jerk for not asking my fiance's brother's wife to be a bridesmaid, especially after all the problems she's caused in my life? Here's what happened. Okay, for starters, I have never really gotten along with my fiance's brother's wife. When I first met her, we were really nice to each other, but we didn't have anything really in common. We were cordial until about a year in, where we had an incident where she ended up kicking my fiance and me out of a room at an Airbnb because she felt as though she deserved the room more. It was also my 21st birthday, so that made it sting a little bit more. Since then, we've never really gotten along. I've always been cordial, but I had no interest in really being close to her because she always seemed to start drama with everybody. She's one of those girls who will start talking badly about someone just so you start talking about the same person, and then she turns around to run to the person to tell them everything that you said. I realized this after probably the third fight that she started started in the friend group, so I've honestly just kept my distance. Now, where this gets tricky is that my fiance is constantly wanting me to try to be better for our relationship with them, and I have tried, but every time I get burned. I've thrown her a baby shower, did her entire gender reveal, and many more things just to try and be on her good side, and somehow I always end up being the bad guy. I drew a line in the sand at the beginning of this year when she unfollowed me on multiple social medias, and when she was confronted, I was, in my eyes, gaslit and told it was an accident when she was purging her accounts. The idea of even asking her to be a bridesmaid only got brought up after she found out I asked a few people, and she called my fiance crying about how she thought we were closer than this and how it's not fair I don't ask her to be one. Now, I refused because I know that if I do, it will make my day more stressful, and that's not something that I want. I compromised and said that I would invite her to the bachelorette party, but I'm being told that I should be the one to reach out with an olive branch. So honestly, am I the jerk here? What should I do? Wow, this lady sounds incredibly entitled, and she sounds like a massive jerk as well. Like seriously, she makes all this drama literally for no reason. It seems so pointless, and it's all just to like start stuff for the sake of starting it. Like it's really disturbing where she would like manipulate the conversation and only talk about like a certain person just to get you to talk about them, and then she would turn it around and tell the person that you were talking about, but like in reality, she started all of it. Like that alone is enough for me to be like, yeah, there's no way you're gonna be a bridesmaid. And also, guess what? It's your wedding. You can decide who you want as a bridesmaid, and literally no one can do anything about it. If you wanted to have no bridesmaids for your entire wedding, then you could do that as well. Like it doesn't make sense to me as to why you should have to be forced to have her as a bridesmaid when she's done so many awful things to you. And when it comes to anyone being like, oh, you need to reach out with an olive branch, it's like, are you kidding me right now? You've done all these baby showers and all these other things, but you're the only one that gets burned in the end. Like she's never satisfied with anything that you do, and it's obvious that nothing you ever do will be good enough. I mean, she even kicked you out of the Airbnb all because she felt like she deserved it more, not even mentioning that this was on your 21st birthday. Like seriously, this lady does not sound nice, and it doesn't sound like someone I would ever want in my wedding party, like in the slightest. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. You should not be forced to have her as a bridesmaid in your wedding, because in my opinion, especially based off of like previous incidents that you've had with her, I'm pretty convinced that she would only cause problems at your wedding. An entitled Karen demands that her daughter be brought into our corporate training video that we're trying to shoot, refusing to take no for an answer, as well as grinding our entire production down to a screeching halt. So in a desperate measure to get this lady out of our hair, we decide to trick her in the best way we could possibly think of on the spot. And I'm honestly so blown away that things worked out the way that they did. Here's what happened. So I was part of a team shooting a short corporate training video. It was on visitor policies for front office workers of a regional healthcare operation. It showcased various scenarios involving visitors that might come up on the job and the do's and don'ts in each case. Now, no one was chasing an Oscar here, but it was still quite high budget and professional. Well, except for one exception. The corporation had granted us access to a front office area at one of their locations to use as a set, but they hadn't thought to notify all the practitioners in the building that they would be shooting video. It was a weekend, when they're typically closed for business, so I guess they took for granted things would be shut down, but there are dozens of private offices of employees in these buildings, and a couple people chose to work weekends. As a result, their patients and clients kept streaming through the lobby while we tried to do this. For the most part, it didn't actually matter. Those who even noticed us at all could see we were filming, and at worst took a couple of pictures and then left us well enough alone. That is, until Karen and Karen Jr. breezed in. For the sake of the story, we'll call them Wanda and Wanda Jr., because my mother is named Karen and she's a wonderful woman. And my ex-wife is named Wanda, and this is exactly the type of stuff that she would get up to. So anyways, we were shooting a scenario in which a third-party contractor approaches the desk attempting to gain entry. Someone like a delivery person or a maintenance worker, but in this case, we were using a water guy. There's an elaborate procedure that's supposed to be demonstrated in the video. It takes several excruciating shots to get correct. We're finally approaching the finish line when suddenly we hear someone start to talk. Oh my god, are you guys making a movie? My daughter is an actress. She'd be great in any movie. Give her any line to read, any part, and she will nail it. What kind of movie is it? We had a PA who was assigned to play defense against anything like this, especially once we realized the building was semi-open to the public, but things had been going so smooth for so long that he took his eye off the ball. A crew member pulled up to the side and patiently explained, "Sorry ma'am, no movie. It's just a corporate thing. You can go that way to your appointment." appointment. They were trying to be polite, but clearly signaling that they needed to move along. Well, as you might guess, that went in one ear and then immediately out the other. She grabbed Wanda Jr. and dragged her over, practically shrieking at this point. She said, "Oh good, no, that's so good. This'll be priceless for her reel. And you'd be lucky to have her, trust me. Any part, just name any part and she'll blow it out of the water. You should see her do Titanic actually. Just name the part, she's ready." Now, Wanda Jr. looked anything but ready. She looked exhausted, mortified, and a little bit nervous. I didn't know if she was scared by the confrontation or at the premise of being given a role. Not that it mattered. The content of these videos is dictated by powers that be. We can't just go adding anything. A more senior crew member tried to reason with them at this point, realizing the whole ordeal was really beginning to hold us up. He emphasized to Wanda, "This is a training video for this business. That means it will only ever be seen by people who actually work here, and not even every single one of them. There isn't even a credit section, so please." He then gestured broadly at our operation that had ground to a halt, hoping the point had been made. This lady then says, "Okay, so just put her in as an extra or something like that. She doesn't have to speak. God, you're all so sensitive." Now, you almost had to admire her dedication at this point, but she wasn't advocating for herself. She was just speaking on behalf of her daughter, who was cowering in a corner a ways away, seemingly totally uninterested by any of this. A few of us got together and discussed our next steps. We decided to just continue shooting and hope for the best. So we tried to do that, and you can probably guess what happened next. Wanda dragged Wanda Jr. back over and tried to plop her down in the middle of the shot. We reset at a slightly different angle and rolled again. Wanda herself made a ton of noise and did everything possible to be disruptive. We got together in a small group again, and we discussed waiting and coming back to finish another day, but we were already severely behind schedule for that day, so we would likely need an entire extra day of filming if we went this route, which was not logistically feasible. We then discussed calling the authorities. We did have a film permit, but that doesn't go so long a ways in keeping strangers out as you'd think it does, and it isn't necessarily enough to even get the police out at all. Finally, we didn't want to generate any negative buzz for the company. We film corporate-style videos often, and we're not keen on a reputation of being hostile to clients or creating hostile scenes inside public-facing areas. Then the PA had quite the idea. An upcoming scene was what to do when emergency services seek to enter the building, such as a fireman or a police officer. And as such, we had a cop costume and an actor primed and ready to play a cop all just laying around. We only had to cross our fingers that Wanda and Junior did not notice the cop had a same-day side hustle as a water guy. So it honestly took a little bit. Wanda planted her feet the entire time, taking glamour shots of Junior in front of our modest camera equipment. Then the supposed cop arrived. We recast him as a security guard so no one would go to jail for impersonating some public official. He swaggered up to the front desk and declared, "Someone contacted security, will need access," which is actually also more or less his first line. A few of us were nervous he'd forgotten the mission and defaulted to his practice content. But no, the desk lady was unflappable. Everyone was on their game. The desk lady said, "Thank you, sir. Was it an emergency or non-emergency call?" Which is also essentially the desk lady's first line. And at this point, we were all really holding our breath. One of the senior crew members stepped in and said, "Yes, hi, I'm the one that called you." He then briefly explains that we're trying to film as well as what's going on. Now, our supposed officer nodded and told Wanda quite authoritatively that she needs to move along. This section of the building is closed to the public and there's absolutely no loitering. But she just kept continuing her glamour shots. The security guard continued, "Photo and video are also strictly prohibited. That's a HIPAA violation. I might need to report that." Well, Wanda huffed and puffed and pouted, but she didn't know what to say. The best she could come up with was saying that she had an appointment. She then said, "I can be here if I want to." Well, our security guard responded by saying, "No ma'am, you can be in the office where you had your appointment. And if they've asked you to leave, then you have to go. The rest of the building is closed except for traffic to and from the private offices." Think of it this way. If I have an appointment in Dr. Smith's office, am I then entitled to go to Dr. Jones' office just because it's in the same building? Or am I entitled to stay in Dr. Smith's office for the rest of my life because I had an appointment there? He stared blankly at Wanda, who threw a stapler off the desk in her fury. The security guard said, "Oh no, there will be none of that. Let's go before I have to escalate the matter." So we all held our breath, and we simply couldn't believe it when she finally left the building. Now, this was all going on during the writers and actors strike, so she yelled out as she left that she's going to report us to the unions as scabs, as if our corporate training video in the middle of America was a union acting job. While it was frustrating to be off schedule, schedule, I mostly feel bad for Wanda Jr., and I honestly hope she gets to spend plenty of alone time with Dad to even out the crazy. Wow, that's a really funny way to get rid of a Karen who's clearly bothering you when you're trying to work. Like seriously, it's just a corporate video. Your daughter's not gonna be a star for being an extra in some video that nobody's gonna watch. But with all that considered, this seriously was a crazy gamble, because either this was gonna pay off big time or it's gonna flop entirely. But honestly, this story is incredibly funny, and I find it incredibly hilarious that she fell for the security guard in the first place. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My boyfriend doesn't want my 6-year-old child with ADHD at family events, and after he uninvited my son to one of these events at the last second, I am now questioning our relationship as a whole. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend for around 8 months. We met through mutual friends, and he has known since the day we met that I have a child from my previous marriage. The two of them have met and get along really well. When it's the three of us, there are no issues at all. My boyfriend stays over my place 1 to 2 nights a week, and it's important to mention that my son has severe ADHD that we are just starting to medicate him for. He struggles in social situations, especially when there are a lot of people he doesn't know or if he's in an unfamiliar environment. Once he's overstimulated, we usually have to leave an event. My boyfriend lives with his parents and 2 siblings also in their 20s. He's saving up for a house and is hoping to be buying one soon. His parents' house is not exactly kid-friendly. There are no kids in his extended family at all, and they have a lot of decorations that are breakable around the house. They also enjoy quiet and privacy. They have pretty strict rules even though the kids are all adults. There have been a couple of occasions where my boyfriend has politely uninvited me to things when I tell him my son is coming with me. This has happened with a Super Bowl party and a couple of family dinners with his parents and his aunts and uncles. He says it's not personal, and I need to remember that it's not his house. He says that certain things kids are just not invited to. And yes, they know I have a child because we talk about him all the time. Though I understand where he's coming from, I told him it's still hurtful to hear. Well, fast forward to this week. My boyfriend invited me to his parents' surprise anniversary party that him and his siblings are planning. He said all of his extended family are going, as well as all of his parents' business partners. I asked him if my son was invited this time, and he said to me, of course he is. Well, the day of the party, I FaceTimed my boyfriend, and I asked him what time that we should be there. He said he wasn't sure if my son should come along unless I could promise that he would behave. Well, I was hesitant to bring him anyways, because I know that he would be the only child there. But he was basically uninviting me again unless I brought my son to a babysitter. This now has me questioning the entire relationship altogether. Should I take this as a sign that this is not a good fit for me? Or am I just being too sensitive? The logical part of me is thinking that he is right, and there are some events my child is just not ready for. But the emotional part of me is hurt, and it feels like the right person should accept this as a package deal no matter what. What should I do? Honestly, first and foremost, to answer your question, yes, I think there are some events that kids should not attend. Like there really are some situations where no, it would not be appropriate for kids to be at this place at all. And I'm willing to bet that this party very quickly became that kind of event. Also, I don't take this as your boyfriend being like, ew, I don't want your son there. But rather, I think he was just looking out for you and your son. He knows your son can get a little bit overstimulated, especially with the two of you still figuring out his ADHD. So maybe there's a silver lining here where he's like, yes, I do care about him, but this might not be the best place for him to be. It really doesn't sound like there was any malice attached to what he was saying. So in my opinion, I don't see this as being like a bad matchup or anything like that, but instead, I kind of think this might be him just cluing into what's going on. And yes, I totally agree with you. He did kind of drop this on you last second, and in my opinion, that is really not appropriate, but I think that's something you can at least discuss moving forward, because in my opinion, I don't think that this is completely a deal breaker. Am I the jerk for asking a hotel employee how they knew my name? Because right now, I'm really shaken up after my last interaction with them, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm staying in a hotel in Dublin City for the weekend, and I have a very late flight home tomorrow evening. Around an hour ago, I went to reception to inquire if they could keep my luggage safe after checkout and before my flight. There were 2 men at the reception that I spoke to. One was the young male receptionist who checked me in yesterday, and the other was an older man in his 50s, but he was not wearing the hotel uniform. The receptionist said, yes, that'll be no problem, and I smiled and said, that's wonderful. Then the older man said to me, what time's your flight? And then they said my name. I said the time, and then I realized that he knew my name, which surprised me, so I said, "Oh, that's funny. How did you know my name? I don't think I told you that." Now, I honestly believe my tone was more curious and confused since it had caught me off guard. I honestly thought maybe I was wearing something with my name on it, and I even looked down just to see. The receptionist said, "Oh, I don't think he called you by your name. Maybe he said madam." I then said, "Oh, really? Oh, my mistake." Honestly, I was kind of relieved, if not a little bit embarrassed, but then the older man chimed in. He said, "No, she's right. I know your name. It's my job to know everything and everyone here." I reply with a nervous laugh. I say, "Oh, that's a little bit weird." I expected he was going to say, "Just kidding," or that he's the manager or something like that, and he just prides himself on knowing everybody's names. I eventually clocked that it all seemed a bit weird since he didn't try to make it obvious that he was joking. The older man then asked me what room I'm in. I was caught up on how he knew my name, but wouldn't say how he knew it, so I started to feel a little bit worried. Out of instinct, I asked him, "Why do you want to know that? I'm really confused." I believe I said this timidly, but with a bit of anxiety, as I remember scanning both their faces as I said it. The receptionist interjects and smiles as if to reassure me. "I think he just wants to offer you a late checkout." This makes me feel a little bit better, so I say something along the lines of, "Oh, I see, that's very nice of you, but I guess I'm just a little bit weirded out by the name thing. Sorry, I've had a long day." The older man then says to me, "Well, I was going to, but since you're being such a jerk, I won't do that now." Except he didn't call me a jerk. Now, when he said this really caught me off guard. Out of instinct, I said, "I'm sorry, I think this has gone the wrong way, but it just confused me that we've never met and you know my name somehow." He then doubled down and repeats a similar line about how he just wanted to be nice, but I had to go and be such a jerk about it. And for context, he is not smiling or laughing at all. I can tell from the receptionist's face that he is shocked. I took a breath and then I slowly and calmly said, "Okay, well, I think that's it. I really don't know what to do with that kind of language." And then I gesture widely in his direction. I don't appreciate it and I don't have anything else to say. I go to leave and they both call me back, but I just raise my hand and I say, "No, I'm done." And then I left the hotel for some air. Now, it's really important to know, he referred to me by my first name and not my surname. There's no photo ID associated with my reservation. Neither of them touched the computer between the time I got off the lift to the time that they realized I was standing in front of them. If they had pulled up my reservation, they would have known my room number. And finally, the older man was not there yesterday when I checked in. I remember because I noticed how all the staff looked really young. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this screams very suspicious. There's no way on earth I would ever feel comfortable with someone doing something like that. Like seriously, that is super creepy. You're telling me this random man in his 50s suddenly just knows your name out of nowhere for no reason and is getting upset because you're questioning him on that? Like seriously, that's like creepy behavior. I really hope you got some names and went to a manager because that kind of behavior is so unacceptable. Like seriously, all this guy had to do was be like, "Oh yeah, I pulled up your record and I can see your first name," instead of being like, "Ooh, hello there. I know your first name. Give me your room number." Like, no, buddy, that's creepy. If I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing and been like, "Wait a second, I can't get past this. How on earth do you know my name?" So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I really hope you escalated this to a much higher authority, because the way this guy was acting was really creepy, and you do not deserve to get treated like that. Am I the jerk for enforcing a rule in my house with the support of my roommate that we do not want any vaping in our apartment? Because after I told my sister about this new rule, she got incredibly upset, furious that she can't vape in my apartment anymore, claiming that going through withdrawal would be absolutely horrible. So at this point, I honestly feel horrible and I really now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I have an apartment with one other roommate for school. We both hate the smell of things like vapes and cigarettes, and I also personally hate anything with nicotine because of how addictive it is. I've seen what it does to people, and personally, I just don't want that stuff in my house. Since none of our friends smoke cigarettes or vape, we never really made a rule about it. Well, my spring break was last week, and my younger sister came to visit for a weekend. And as you might be guessing based on the story, she kept hitting her vape. It was like it was just second nature to her to grab the thing and take a hit. I asked her to stop because the smell was bothering me, and while she did apologize, she kept getting defensive about hitting it so much because she can't just go cold turkey for a weekend. And honestly, that's fair. While I've never experienced withdrawal from nicotine, I have experienced some withdrawals from antidepressants, and it's horrible. I would never wish that on anybody. But because it was still bothering me, I went to my roommate about adding no vaping to our official house rules. Now, he was cool with it because we both don't like having that stuff in our space. And since we agreed to that, I texted my sister. The text was brief, and I just explained that if she came to visit again this semester, she could not vape here anymore. Well, to put it bluntly, she blew up at me about it. She reminded me that withdrawal is horrible, so she can't just give up for a weekend to see me. She also said that it's not that big of a deal and that she'll just use it in the bathroom if it bugs me that much. And you know what? Her reaction just honestly made me want to reinforce this rule even further. But at the same time, I feel bad because I'm basically forcing her to stop doing something just because I don't like it. I'm not trying to be some guardian angel helping people end their nicotine addiction, nor am I asking for her to stop vaping completely. I don't want to not allow my sister into my apartment over some flavored air. It honestly just comes down to the fact that I don't want that trash in my apartment. I later went to some friends and their responses are mixed. A few of my friends said stuff along the lines of how I'm just setting a boundary, similar to someone who doesn't drink asking his guests not to drink only while they're in his home, but other friends are saying that I'm trying to force my opinions on vaping onto my sister, or I'm trying to force her to quit vaping altogether. But seriously, that is not what I want to do though. We're both adults, and while I'm not happy that she vapes, it's not my place to act all high and mighty. She is her own person, and she can do whatever she wants. I just don't want some things to happen in my house. Now, my sister is more than welcome to step outside, but I don't think that's an option because I'm worried it's unreasonable since I live on the 5th floor of my building. So honestly, am I the jerk for trying to enforce this kind of rule in my house? What should I do? Honestly, in my opinion, I don't think this is outside of anything that would be reasonable in someone else's home. Like, think about it. This is your place that you live in. You and your roommate came to this conclusion together, and you both have decided that no, you don't want vaping to happen in the house. I don't think that's unreasonable at all, and honestly, I think that's a completely normal thing to ask of someone. For me though, the biggest red flag is the fact that she started screaming at you about this. I mean, she seriously does not like the fact that you're trying to say, hey, I don't want this in my house, which kind of leads me to believe that yes, this is an addiction of some kind. She clearly has like some kind of dependency on the vaping to try and like function as a human being, and the fact that she can't stop for even just a little bit and not do this for an extended period of time is kind of worrying to me. It really screams to me that she does have a problem with this, and it really seems like this might be a little bit deeper than what you might be expecting. And if that's the case, then maybe she shouldn't visit until she has this under control. Or if she does come to your house, then maybe she actually should step outside, try and get herself under control with all the withdrawal symptoms that she's experiencing, and then she can come back up to your apartment. But in my opinion, if I'm being completely honest, and maybe I'm the jerk in this situation, but it really seems like she's just trying to guilt trip you to try and get her way. And that part alone is like really inappropriate, because at the end of the day, this is your house. And if you don't want any vaping to happen inside of your house, then honestly, she can either respect that or she can just not visit. And in my opinion, based on the way she's acting, it might be better for her to stay home instead of coming to your apartment. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I love and appreciate all of you so much. I put a lot of hard work into these videos, and to see people connect with them really means a lot to me. So if you haven't already, please subscribe to Am I the Jerk? Hit the bell, turn on notifications. It'll make a big difference for me and the channel, and I just really appreciate it. Also, while you're at it, go check out Am I the Genius? Seriously, we love them. They are some of our favorite people. We work with them constantly. They're like that cool older sibling that always has your back, and honestly, I really love what they're making over there, and I think you're going to as well. So please check them out in the description and give them a subscribe, man. Give them a chance. I think you're going to like them. Thank you so much, everybody. I love all of you, and I will see you in the next video.